Alright guys, ROKKR back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome to episode 60 of the Breaking Point podcast. We've just had one of, no doubt, the craziest weekends we've ever seen in Call of Duty history. CDL Major 2 is over. The Los Angeles Guerrillas are champions. What's going on? I don't understand it. I was talking to a housemate and I was trying to get him to guess who won the event. And I was like, it's a purple team. He was like, Ultra. And, you know, who else is there? And then I said it's an LA team. And he was just mind blown it was the LAG given where they were last year. They made a new team. They're the substitutes. They made the run. They beat Austin in the grand finals. He's devastated. But, you know, we're going to dive into everything today. Lionman may or may not be joining us at some point, but we're going to crack on and hopefully he gets to join us for the final few minutes as we discuss all of the top teams, power rankings, like... There's never-ending storylines as a result of this, so we're just going to not delay at all. Thanks to all those watching on the podcast platforms, live on Twitch as well, after the fact on YouTube. All the episodes have been killing it lately, so yeah, we appreciate every single one of you. Austin, how you doing? You're back safe and sound. You said that Minnesota wasn't your favourite event ever. Decent result, not what you wanted, but managed to maybe avoid the kind of land flu that some have been getting hit by.
Yeah, no, doing pretty good. Definitely happy to be home. It was a great venue, but you know I'm glad to be home having home cooked meals and going out to dinner here. But yeah, doing as well as you can be for getting second place. Yeah, glad to be here.
Absolutely. Let's crack on. Major 2. It starts. We've got the first set of matches. What we're going to do, I think, is just going to crack through the teams in order. We'll spend less times, I guess, on the teams that came last, but of course, some of them we've got to consider roster changes and stuff like this as well. Yeah, yeah, Cam Allen's having a good time at the cafe also. Good to see Cam out there, baby. I was, proud of you, man. Given a couple of years ago, get the job that you wanted, out there in the States, living life, being an analyst for a team. I was happy for you, man. Shame you didn't get a better result, but, blame you for that one. Top 12. Paris Legion. They get 3-1 by London. Honestly, kind of unlucky in a way. Not really unlucky. They lost fair and square. The game 4, they maybe should have won. London somehow won at 252-48 Tuscan. Lion seems to be online. I think maybe time zones have changed or daylight savings or something. He might be on soon. But Paris get beaten 3-1. They come top 12. Still, they do look somewhat competitive in every series they play now, because given they are the 12th team in the league, they're at least still competitive in most series they play. The question is, to me, Austin, Temp. He's absolutely frying every series he plays. And I'm pretty sure he's not stat padding. Watching him play, he seems like not only is he... If he was not in their team, I think they would get bodied every series, not just because of the stats he puts up, but from what he does from a leadership standpoint, from a comms standpoint, all this type of stuff. I think that if he wasn't there, they just get smoked. He adds so much value to the team. So I'm thinking, if I'm another team and I'm thinking, okay, do I need a flex or something with championship pedigree, then Temp could be a guy I want to buy out. So knowing Paris Legion on the contracts and the salaries, probably quite easy to make it happen. So, what do you think about Paris, Austin? I still think they're number 12, but it just is a testament to this league that they're not getting absolutely bodied every series they play.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited because I think when they started making roster changes, the thing I said here is that we just want them to be competitive. We just want them to not get 3-0'd every series. And I think they found a good, better balance because, they're still not winning too many series, but they're competitive. They look like a threat when you play them. You can't just not consider them when you have them on the schedule, which is good. I definitely think that some of their, the younger players, Tom and Jimbo, need a little bit more time to grow. But Temp has been obviously the shining light on their team. He's been playing very, very good. I think this was probably what he needed to rise his stock because the last couple of years following, honestly, Black Ops 4 haven't been too great, and to see him finally, confident, he looks like he's having fun up there. He looks like he's doing his thing. So I'm honestly real happy for him. He's been doing really good. I would not be shocked to see his name start being floated around for teams that are looking ahead to champs, because obviously only 8 teams make it there, and we're halfway through the season. So you can kind of gauge what your odds are of making it, and with Paris not looking so hot, there is a world where they maybe try to recoup some of their losses and sell him. So who knows? We might see that happen in the future.
Yeah, I think agreed. We'll see how that goes, what Paris decide to do as time progresses. Another team that comes top 12 is the New York guys. I was kind of hopeful they might make a run here. I think they had it in them, to be honest, just given the way that the event went. They get 3-0 by FaZe, tough first round matchup. I think they were pretty competitive. Like, I think they're better than their placement suggests. But I thought they were semi-competitive with FaZe. Maybe should have closed out one of those maps at least. They should have beaten Thieves. They looked great against them first two maps, and then they just couldn't close out the game, which it was brutal watching it. Like, LA Thieves caught some momentum. Fair play to them for making the reverse sweep happen. But yeah, New York had opportunities every map to win that series, and they throw it away and get reverse swept. So kind of classic, really classic stuff from some of these lower tier squads. The question has been made, because if they make a decent run here, come top 6 maybe, then you go into this kind of off season with a bit more points in the bag. Because the fact of the matter is, if we look at the standings, we don't necessarily have to bring them up, Omar, but New York are 11th right now in the standings with 40 points. They are 30 points away from 8th, which is where it needs to be for champs, right? So they needed some points here, really, because now they have to rely on doing great the next couple of stages, which I don't think you can guarantee with the state of the league and how competitive everything is in the middle of the pack. So, it does put them in a bit of a predicament, really, that is this team going to be the one? Or, because initially they did want to make a two-man change and get rid of Neptune, and it must be said, like, his stats were okay, but in terms of engagements, he was certainly off the mark from where you might expect a player to be. So I would wonder, especially with Toronto struggling, we'll talk about them in a second, is there a world in which Neptune still gets kicked out, Hydra stays, Porlex stays, Crimsic stays, and you try and bring in another more impactful, faster pace SMG? Because I don't know if he's actually going to be on the market, but given if Toronto decide to blow it up, CleanX could be a guy if they bring the pocketbook out, which is kind of what I've thought about with Los Angeles Thieves as well. Given it was rumored he might be leaving Toronto in the off season, it's like, CleanX and Hydra, Porlex and Crim. I like the sound of that, but whether it's going to happen, I don't know. I just think New York have to seriously consider making another move here, because I'm not sure this squad, frankly, is going to be good enough. It's at least not going to be a comfortable road to champs, which is not what you want to see if you're Crimsix right now, halfway through the year.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that happened to them is that every team in like the midfield got a lot of points. Like Florida, obviously LAG got a shit ton. Seattle was up there. Boston, like a lot of those midfield teams got a ton of points at the major. And of course, New York did not get as much. Same can be said about LA Thieves. Even though they have 70, they definitely dropped back. Because of this, Minnesota and Toronto, I'd be saying the same things. Like it's really bad for them that this major was kind of wonky with some of the midfield teams like getting a ton of points. So New York, obviously, I think they're better than their placing, but at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of room to grow. They definitely choked a lot of leads, especially the LA Thieves. So who knows? I think if this team struggles in Major 3 and at the Pro-Am, because I think teams are going to be kind of reevaluating their rosters going in the Pro-Am and then kind of using that as a gauge heading into Stage 3, because the qualifiers start 4 days after. So if New York struggles there, I would not be shocked to see at least one more change come in. So you never know what could be done there. Obviously, there's a lot of teams looking for SMGs as well, so it could be pretty much a 1-for-1 trade, or maybe they'll look to bring up like another kid from another rookie from the challenger side. So I would not be shocked. A lot of teams will start to be really aggressive in the next month, because New York's in 11th place right now. They're 30 points out from COD champs, from 8th. So that's the the gauge getting the COD champs. They're 30 points out. So you're gonna have to make some pretty hard decisions the next month if your team's not turning around. You're gonna have to probably pull the trigger really quick on picking up someone to try to change and rapidly for Stage 4 if Stage 3 doesn't start going your way.
One-man change can work, it seems. Lion, welcome to the show, baby. I mean, look, fact of the matter is, the time zones are an absolute nightmare here. I didn't realize, but daylight savings has kicked in, because I guess our clocks went forwards, Lion's clocks go backwards because it's going into winter, and therefore we get a 2-hour swing. So what used to be the same time for me and Austin is now 2 hours earlier for Lion. So it's not even 9 a.m. But welcome to the show. We're talking about New York. How are we doing?
Oh, good, mate. New York, It was just a pretty tough weekend for them, wasn't it? They got destroyed by you guys, and then they came in against LA, and LA unexpectedly found some form on land, which was quite shocking. They even pushed OpTic to game 5, but
We'll get
yeah,
into that one.
yeah, we will. Um, but yeah,
we
I think
we could
you were
talk
right about.
Toronto maybe.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Go on.
Yeah, I think you're right about New York. I think they're in a tough spot now. 11th is pretty far down, and I can imagine they will make another change if it doesn't kick in at the pro-am for sure.
That's a good point, actually, with the Prem. But the thing is, the Prem's right before the Major 3, so it's a tough one for teams to determine how long they want to wait. I think that changes will happen during this period of a couple of weeks, which means that options will be there for some teams. Okay, we've got to talk Toronto. Obviously, they go into this major 2-16 in their last 18 hard points. They come out of the major 2-18 in their last 20 hard points. So congratulations. I don't know what the record for the worst hard point team of all time is, but they've got to be up there because they're actually good in the other modes. It's kind of funny. But yeah, they lose both hard points. Of course, they lose to LAG, the eventual champions. But who didn't this tournament, to be perfectly honest? Look, I don't know if it's chalked. I think it might be chalked. Especially the issue is that they're not a team that, in my opinion, if this is a team like Minnesota or something, and they were, or even I don't know, even a Seattle or something, and they haven't had that success before, and they look good, and now they've fallen off, and it's like maybe we can get back there. But obviously, if you're Toronto, you've won events, you want to win events, you want to be in grand finals, top threes, championship Sundays. To have the fall off they've had, especially in that game mode, I can't see this team before putting it back together again. I don't know exactly what's going wrong. I think it's a problem probably across the board because none of the guys really look so good in this game, apart from arguably at the start of the year, Bance was maybe their best player. And Insight is still an absolute monster if you put him in a clutch and a search and destroy. But outside of that, they've been pretty woeful. Clinics has underperformed lately, I think. Cammy has been nowhere near the impactful player he was last time. Which and genuinely, they're a team that you're not afraid to fate at all. I think the teamwork they had last game is not as impactful this year. So honestly, it might be time to blow it up. The issue is, as I've said, that I think a Kleenex is going to be a hot prospect here if there is a potential change. But the problem is, if you're Toronto, why would you get rid of him? If a team pays you a lot of money, you might. But I don't know. I feel like internally they might realize a change is necessary. You do have Hixie on your bench, who of course just got the #1 seed from the Challengers tournament coming out of there. So maybe that's something you consider, to be honest. Like maybe you make a sub move, you bring in Hixie, you trade one of your players away or sell them. I don't know. But I I can see them trying to stick it out, but I don't think it's the correct idea. Which is kind of sad to say, but the team's been together quite a long time. Teams don't last all that long, in my opinion, Austin. But I don't know what you think now. Just another tragic defeat, another classic defeat from this team. It's just vintage Toronto that we've seen the last couple of months.
So I actually just had a conversation about this. I don't think you make a change because you have Insight and Cammy, who were two of the top 5 Cold War players last year. You have Kleenex, who's a top 10 player, and you have Bance, who honestly I think might be one of the most impactful players right now. So you're in a really tough spot. I think there's enough talent. I just don't think they're. I can't like say too much, but I just don't think. I think they're making some fundamental mistakes. They're making life much more harder for them.
Baby.
Yeah. Like you can see when you watch it, like it's just tough. So my thing is if you bench a player, right? So right now, if you were to bench someone, like it's got to be I think one of their ARs are really struggling. Kleenex has honestly kind of lost form, and then Vance is probably who most people would have pointed at. But honestly, when you watch him play, he's the one that's making a lot of plays for them. And I think he's probably the most impactful player on that roster right now. Even though the stats don't necessarily say it, he's just doing a lot on the mini map to make plays. I think people are starting to realize you don't need to have a 1.2 to make the most impactful plays. We saw countless times that, Asem this past weekend, who, one series he had a 0.7, but he literally won them like 3 of those maps just by making plays. That's kind of the field I put Bance in. So if you bench somebody, odds are that they come back to your roster is pretty much nil. And if you just had the season you had last year and then you bench someone this year, odds are they are not coming back. You can pretty much see them on a different team next year. If like what happens if the game next year is more like Cold War. But also, I think that, I mean, who are you gonna get in to fill these roles? If you blow it up, do you maybe like
That's the
say like,
issue. Yeah.
yeah, there's just a lot of questions. That's why I would say stick it out. There has to be a way to kind of revert your hard point. Change philosophy. Whatever you've been doing the last 2 months, change it. Do the opposite, because it's not been working. Yeah, I just think this year. I mean, historically, we have seen rosters that don't perform after having a good season. It's happened countless times. Um, and there has been rosters. Someone told me this, like Envy won COD champs one year. The next year they started off horrible, horrible. They were gonna make a change.
Wonder
They
who
they
mentioned that last week.
they ended up sticking, and then they won that. Did they win that COD champs the one year after?
They
They
made
won
grand finals. They lost to OpTic.
Yeah.
the last 2 events.
So you never know. I think with this much talent on the roster, you kind of it like forces you to stick it out. You know what I mean? Like it forces you to stick it out, or like you're just gonna have to start making big trades because you can't just like bench one of these guys. You know what I mean? Like you gotta. I don't know. They're in probably the most difficult spot of the lower tier teams, I think, right now.
Yeah. But maybe at the Pro-Am, remember they've got 2 of their academy teams going to the Pro-Am.
What the
So
teams, maybe?
what if they both outplace the actual Toronto Ultra and they just put in an entire academy roster into the COD League?
Oh, it's so baller,
Yeah.
man.
That would be amazing.
I think Gambit did that in CS, did they not? Is it?
I
I
believe
think it
so,
was
yeah.
Gambit's CS team. They just like brought their academy in as their main team.
Yeah, their
And that
academy
happened,
team
I
is
think it
much better.
happened in LCS as well at one point. But yeah, I don't know. We've talked about it quite a lot. Their struggles have been going on since after the kickoff. And I think we've just discussed that this game is a lot harder to be cohesive for these 4 guys. The pacing and everything just doesn't seem to suit them very well. So I can imagine like at least a 2-person change coming in. But I just don't know who they would get rid of. That he'd need to just have that discussion internally. But I can imagine it's not very far away. The roster's looking pretty rough on this game.
I'm just thinking, like, looking at what happened with LAG, and we've seen a few times already this year a one-person change. Maybe not a few times, but having to a degree with Paris. They made like a move or two, and things looked much
They're still
better.
last.
They're still last, I agree. New York, they brought in Paul Lex, looked much better. They went from 0-13 and hardpoint to 6-0. Like, we can see a one-person change turning a team on its head, and we've seen it with Spart, right? He comes in for Gunless. I honestly don't think they win this event with Gunless. I think the way they played, I think Spart brought something, new energy, new kind of culture. Obviously, they had to some degree like
Completely
a kind
different
of
pacing.
yeah, very different pacing. Like he brought something different to the team that they didn't have with Gunless. That makes me think that firstly he should stay. Obviously, we'll get to that, but also that like a one-man change can actually change a lot within a team. So I do wonder, like Hixie's on the bench. He's just won the challenges event. But I kind of agree with Austin that if you bench someone for the main team, are they going to come back? That's another question. But I don't know. Like Hixie's sitting there. A lot of people said going into this weekend he was the best sub in the league, like the best player on the bench. God Spark kind of proved to be the best sub in COD history. But given what Hixie did this weekend, and he looked really good when he came in for that one series earlier this season. I think they played Florida, then they 3-0'd him. Like he might be worth a go. Might be worth trying it. Maybe in some scrims or something. I don't know. The other top 12 team, Minnesota ROKKR. Tough break for them. They play OpTic at their own major. The crowd was immense. I got to give credit to the crowd, though, because this is probably the first time even when I was at Birmingham 2018, when it was Splice versus OpTic, like UK team versus OpTic, like I would say the crowd was equally loud for both teams, pretty much. Like it was pretty much 50-50 split. It was on a side station as well, so it was absolutely bonkers. But this is probably the first time that like OpTic have ever been booed coming out. Like it does give credit to the Minnesota fan base and the kind of what they've built around their team that they're able to pull something like that off and kind of like outshine the OpTic fans at a COD event is very rare. So props to Minnesota as an organization, but no props to their team. They get no props from me. Their game 1 record is atrocious. I don't know what their game 1 record is, Austin, but I think it's something like 1-13, 1-12. 2-14. It's absolutely abysmal. They go down 0-1 every series, and sometimes they still win. But their hardpoint record is 6-18, and I believe that I believe Saint replied to one of my tweets saying that they have like a 60% game 4 win record, which means that their game 1 record is like 5%.
It's atrocious. I think they won once in game 1.
Yeah,
They
just like
literally
what is
won
that?
once.
So they win game 2, and then they lose the control, lose the hard point to OpTic. It was a kind of close series, but OpTic weren't exactly great this tourney. Okay, Priester and Standy, they've both been pretty terrible, to be honest. Like, we've kind of mentioned before, is a complete role change the best idea? Like, I think Major Maniac's been good, but just the way other teams have decided to make their moves with making kind of a flex the main AR, right? Like, could we do that with Attach? These type of questions. But at the end of the day, Priester and Standy have both been pretty woeful this year, to be perfectly honest. I think that one of them might have to go. Does that actually improve the team? I don't know, but I think that this is probably the team which has the most potential for some positive trades, because Priest has been stuck on this roster for quite some time. Obviously won that event last year, but hasn't individually been looking great. But I think teams will look at Priester and Standy and think we can really do much more with the talent of these players than Minnesota have been able to achieve. So to me, this is kind of the team that has the most potential to kickstart some sort of trade, just because I think a lot of other teams in a tough spot will look at those guys and think we could do something here, and maybe there is an actual trade that could happen. I don't know what it is, but I don't think Minnesota can afford to keep this roster, because 6 and 18 in hardpoint we're looking at Toronto Ultra levels. What do you think, Austin?
This seems really confusing, just because, quite honestly, like, I think you could go a number of different ways with this roster. Look, I don't think either of their SMGs have been great. I don't think either one of their ARs has been nothing too crazy. I think they've both been solid. You could go a whole route where, honestly, you keep one of Major and Attach and kind of get rid of everybody and try to rebuild the roster. I really highly doubt they would go that route.
Crazy mid-season, but yeah.
Yeah, because like right now you are in a very difficult. Like, that sounds crazy to most people, but you are now in 10th place with 50 CDL points. And quite honestly, probably looking like very.
We're probably looking at like not making champs, to be perfectly honest. Given how competitive this league is, with LAG and Mutineers up there, and Breach and London, the top for the bottom 4 is rough.
Like, this major was honestly probably the worst thing that happened to them, because going into the major they had much higher odds, but then Florida leapfrogged them, Seattle leapfrogged them, LAG completely leapfrogged them. Boston, London, and us built a higher lead, right? So now you're kind of stuck in the spot where you're kind of looking for questions. You're next to New York, who looks far better than them right now, and you're stuck next to Toronto, who, even though Toronto doesn't look good right now, like, has a lot of talent. I just see. I think Priesta probably needs to change the scenery. I think for him, I think he is a very good SMG. I think just right now with this roster composition, it's just not working. I can see it where he goes to another team and just does a complete 180. Like, I can clear cut see it. I think Attach needs to be a main AR. I think he needs to be in that role. I think he's needed to be in that role for quite a long time now. And I think is starting to see that he can be one of the best main ARs in that role. And I think that's where we'll probably see him. Standy, even though he has some good stats, man, I just see way too many brain farts coming out of this whole team, in crunch time. I think back to when they got off the hard point to win on Tuscan.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that one.
And then there's just a handful of things. But at the same time, I look at this team and I say, yes, they're 5 and 8 series count, but they've probably had the toughest road. No, they've probably had one of the toughest roads. But at the same time, you fail at majors, so it's like, yeah,
I love it both ways.
Yeah, I know. So it's like, you could definitely see a world where they stick it out and they, get some more luck on their side with the scheduling, finally make a run of the major, and then they're fine. But if they have if they have one more bad major where they go out and last, they're not making champs. So I guess that's where you just kind of have to roll the dice. And do you want to make moves? How many moves do you want to make? They have a lot of tradable assets. They have a lot of sellable assets, I'll say.
Yeah. We'll see about trades.
Yeah. So, and right now,
the Nubsy curse, I love that. Because if you guys don't know, Nubsy's part of version 1 as an organization now. I don't think he works directly at all, pretty much with the COD team, but he goes from Seattle, garbage, goes to Minnesota, and they fall off a cliff. Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
he does their like tournament like production, like he runs that. So he was the one that kind of like set up the amateur land. So, but yeah, yeah. So they're also in a really tough spot because I highly doubt they'll pull the trigger on like completely revamping the squad. So they're kind of hedging their bets on having 2 straight good majors to make it in the COD champs. So, like, what would you do, Lion?
Well, it's pretty tough
Blow it
because
up, baby.
no. They won stage 5 in the most spectacular way possible last year, and I think that gave longevity to how long Toronto, not Toronto, Minnesota wanted to keep this roster. And so they got that one massive championship, and then every other result has been at least less than top 4, right? Like since the start of last year.
What we've played 6 stages now.
Yeah,
From
7.
5 last year, yeah, 7. So 5 last year, 2 this year, and they've had 1 good major.
Yeah, pretty.
Well,
They had a very very good champs. I'll say that too. They
they
placed
had a
top
good
4, I
chance they
think.
came top 4, and then like they was that one event they beat OpTic, where I think they
Yeah.
probably also placed top 4.
So they've
But
only got
outside of
one
like,
top 3.
That's 9 tournaments over 2 years. They won 1, they beat OpTic in 1, and they placed top 4 at champs.
Yeah.
Ah,
Not the best. But that win seemed to have given them so much life for a long time. But I can imagine, yeah, they make a change, but it's another one of those situations where this year it's so hard to single out one person that's been the reason. And so making these one person changes must be quite difficult. Who would you bring in? Because we've got some players like we can all assume that Gunless is not coming back to LAG, which is the most disastrous situation for him ever. People were giving him shit even though he was just ill.
so
But
mind
I
blowing,
could see
man. That's
him
actually
ending up
so
on a
mind
roster
blowing.
on like Minnesota or LA Thieves. But yeah, I think once he goes onto another team, I
Late
think a lot of
season.
roster changes will go down. And I think ROKKR might have to be one of those teams that looks at the changes in the next few weeks or so. It's
yeah,
just not been very good, has it?
they're in a tough spot too because their academy team is Spanish, and like most of their academy team like doesn't is not the best English speakers. So it's not even like you could make a combination of like 2 Spaniards, 2 people from their current roster. Like I'm pretty highly against that to begin with. I think that brings in a whole this load of communication issues, and when this game is as fast as it is, you literally, if you have communication issues, you are on the bottom of the tier. Like you really have no chance of really winning tournaments. So like they're in a tough spot there, and then I think yeah, like you're looking around the league. I don't know. I feel like you have really good assets, but you're probably gonna have to sell a couple of these guys and like completely revamp the roster, which I doubt they want to do. Like in their camp right now, they're probably thinking we've had and over the course of the 2 qualifiers probably the hardest schedule, and yes, we've lost a lot and we've started in the losers bracket twice, but 1 or 2 of those series goes the other way and we're in winners bracket, and the season looks different. But so like that's where I bet they're at right now, and I honestly bet you they will not make a change going into this next month. And they'll probably stick it out for the pro am in Major 3, which
Yeah,
who knows how
They're for
that will
sure
go.
faded for that. They're for sure faded if they do
they
that. I
should
mean,
definitely make that role swap ASAP.
and you got to do
Permanently
something
have
like,
Priester on the sub,
Oh,
attach
he's been on
OKR,
there. He's been on there
and
for a month
yeah,
now.
I think they've done it. I think they've done that.
Yeah,
But like,
it's just not working then.
it's
yeah.
not working, so we chalk it out. We got to chalk it out. We got to look at the teams. Which teams have been looking better? Like, I don't know. I don't think there's any examples so far this year of a team kind of sticking out the roster and turning a corner. Like, it's not going to happen, lads. You're still going to keep losing game ones. It doesn't matter what's going on in scrims. You might be smoking these fools in scrims. You come to a match, you get on like 1 in 14 in game ones. Like, we got to fix up, son.
I think their best bet, honestly, is that New York does not do well, and they try to get Neptune. They do Neptune and honestly one of Standy and Priesta, and then they do
Yeah, maybe that
they
works.
keep one of Major and Attach, put them on main AR, and then they try to
Let's
get
look at
a
someone.
very aggressive Lux role player.
Yeah, we could get a Donny Temp. We could get a Gunless, maybe. I don't know. Let's go top 8. We've got to talk London. Interesting weekends because, of course, they beat Paris, and then their other 2 series they played, they got 3-0'd, which I was not expecting because in both these series they got to choose the control. So going in, I was like, well, look, London should win the Gavoo 2, They're good enough in all the other modes to at least win a couple of maps. They're pretty clutch in Game 5, but like was not the case at all this weekend. 3-0 by Florida, 3-0 by LAG. Like Zero talks about the fact that they had bad practice coming into the event. Honestly, they looked very sloppy. I think that pretty much all the maps they played felt winnable, especially the Florida series. They arguably could have 3-0'd that, but it doesn't go their way at all. And look, you've got to raise the question, are they onliners? Because they were looking really good online. Both lands, okay, they come top 3 at the first land in fairness, but they arguably had an easier bracket than they might have done and lost to the good teams. I don't know. I still have faith in this team. I think they should get more comfortable on land with time. I do wonder if it's a bit of a wake-up call for those guys, though, because I think that maybe part of them thought, especially kind of looking at the rankings, that it was very clear before this tournament. Things are now getting very spicy, but before this tourney, it was very clear OpTic FaZe Ravens 1, 2, 3, and then Breach were 4th, but London were clearly better than Breach. They beat them in the final game of the qualifiers, and London might have got a bit comfortable with the idea, okay, we're comfortably top 3, we're going to take down any teams below us without issue. They play 2-3 teams that are below them and get bodied in 2 of the series. So wonder if they were getting a bit too comfortable with that kind of feeling, okay, we're top 3, we've got to focus above us, OpTic and FaZe, rather than keeping our game solid for the guys below us. I don't know. I'm sure maybe Cam Allen can give some insight in the chat, but yeah, tough weekend for those guys because it puts them in a bit of a predicament, really, and it puts the pressure on them, though. Like, it doesn't put them in a predicament in the sense they have a load of points. They have... they don't have to worry about not qualifying for champs at this point, really. And they probably won't for the rest of the year. So it's nice to have that cushion, but got to turn up. We want to win one of these. We're not here for 3rd place, lads.
Yeah,
they G3 at London. So did Florida in winners round 1.
I think they leave this major and think, this is just one of those ones where we slipped up. Going into the major, they were clear-cut the 3rd best team in the CDL, and I thought by a decent margin too. Like, I thought them and Boston were a decent margin ahead of the rest of the midfield. I think they probably leave this and say, like, look, we got to stop slacking off. We thought we were some hot shit for a month or two. We've been doing well, but we have to remember that every single team is gunning for the top, and we can't, have shitty days of practice. We can't just not care that we're losing some of those maps. We got to keep grinding, keep pushing ourselves to be better. That is a very, very, very easy trap. That is probably like a cycle that every team goes through monthly. London probably just caught the tail end of that cycle at the worst time. So I would probably, if I'm them, I'm leaving this tournament saying, look, we just got to go back, find our groove. Actually, like, this is probably like a splash of water in the face, when you're kind of starting to fall asleep a little bit, and they'll be back for major 3. I honestly do not doubt that this team will be back because they play hardpoint great. They're a threat in S&D, and their controls there. It's just getting back that grind and getting back that edge, because I just think right now, Florida came in with that edge. LAG obviously went on this Cinderella run. I would not be shocked to see London come out and probably end like 4-1 next qualifier, and then place pretty highly at major 3. So I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, neither. I think they probably did come in a tiny bit overconfident without even thinking about it into this tournament. And they got destroyed by Mutineers first up, which didn't make much sense. I think we all assumed that Mutineers would be dropping straight down to losers and then out swiftly after, but they had a great tournament. But yeah, I was going to bring up the stats, but I didn't quite get it in on time. So if you want to fill the void while I look for that, give me a moment.
I guess one thing I will say is that, like, I hate using the word younger, but like rookies that come in to the CDL, sometimes being online is easier because there's not as much pressure. But at the same time, these qualifier matches have more pressure on them than like pool play matches in tournaments and past. So like at the same time, I just think right now Trey, and honestly all of these guys have been very vocal when you talk to them, are probably pushing to get that killer instinct on land, like keep that up going into tournaments and practice, because honestly that final week of practice is where you want to be like putting teams in the dirt. You want to be getting your confidence up. You want to be playing 100%. You don't want to be going into the major having like practice where you're uncertain of certain things. You're not following your game plan, because then you're going to be doubting yourself. And I think they'll find that like balance that they want to do going into the major preparation, and I'm sure they're looking at the standings right now with 130 CDL points and still thinking we're in a fantastic spot. We just have to take this break, reset, because Gizmo was dealing with a lot of personal issues that probably derailed all of their momentum going into major 2 and then kind of or major 1 and then with everything going on now. So I think there's a good mental reset this next like 3 weeks. You go into the pro-am, they're they're going to be looking good. I'm not like if London was a stock, I'm not going to sell them. I'm holding if that makes more sense.
Wait,
No, I like this new. Yeah, I like that, Austin. We could start bringing in some stock terminology. I'm definitely shorting Minnesota ROKKR if they don't change their team. But go on, line.
yeah. So stats wise for this major, it wasn't really anyone that was an outlier. I think Afro had a pretty average tournament. He was all right in control, but yeah, they were just inconsistent across the board. And I mean, I guess that's the case because they went what 2-8 or 3-8 in map count or something, 3-7. So yeah,
Those
I'm the
maps are tough.
same as Austin. I think that this team can come back and they've got a big break now. I think I like this middle period of the year to allow teams to reset. And I think it might actually mix things up quite a bit. And I'm excited to see where they go because yeah, this tournament was not it for these boys.
Yeah, I really think what this weekend proved across the board is that the top teams are the top teams, but they are very vulnerable if they don't play their best to the middle of the pack, because the middle of the pack is very good and can catch fire on their day. And I was saying this before we went live, actually, that like the OpTic team back in the day just had so much talent that it doesn't matter if they were turning up hungover or like they'd literally just got out of bed. They'd still be smoking Fools 3-0 if they were like the 8th best team in the world. Nowadays, if you turn up, the league is so competitive that, and I think you can talk about the game, right, and the skill gap and all this type of stuff, but the best teams generally still make the grand finals. And I feel like LAG winning 10 search and destroys in a row and 6 series in a row shows that it was not just a coin flip, right? LAG just didn't win 6 series in a row on a coin flip. That's at least my opinion. But regardless, you can't afford to not play your best. If you don't play your best, you're getting beaten by teams like Mutineers, by teams like Surge, teams like Guerrillas. It's going to happen if you're not on your game. So I think that's maybe a lesson learned for some of these guys this weekend. Let's move on to the other team who were top 8. That was Los Angeles Thieves, baby. They get a win. They managed to reverse sweep New York. Congratulations. Then they lose to OpTic. They always play well against OpTic, like any OpTic series. Doesn't matter because this was the first seed versus the 12th seed. So it should be a blowout, but like it was never going to be a blowout. Like whenever these two teams play, there's always fireworks. I feel like LA Thieves always kind of turn up, and in fairness, I was expecting more from Kenny, but Envoy played great. The thing is, though, yes, they take it game 5. We'll talk about OpTic in a second, Vix. And also, just to answer Shafi's question, is Prem double elim 4 group pools? I believe it's 4 group pools. I don't know what the elimination setup is for the bracket. I don't think they've announced it yet.
But Media says single elim, which would be fucking tragic.
Okay, Code Gamepedia says single elim, which would be tragic. So we're going to leave it there for now. We'll talk about that in the coming weeks. Okay, Los Angeles Thieves will continue. I wasn't really impressed because, yes, they got reverse swept, first of all. They went up 2-0. They should have lost game 1. I don't know how OpTic lost that. Shotzi was like 35-20 or something, and they still somehow get completely out-rotated the last few hard points. Lose the search. OpTic search this weekend was tragic. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. Kind of a bit of a throwback there. But still, they get absolutely bodied in the slaying category. Like, Los Angeles Thieves cannot outslay anyone for shit, which they should be able to do. But, like, you look at the slaying, Octane, honestly, watching that Berlin hardpoint was comedy. Like, Octane was in such a blender. He was just getting shot from all. He had no idea where to look. It was just depressing watching it, to be honest. They almost got 100 Point Club game 4. They brought the momentum into game 5. A Tuscan search and destroy where Thieves are very good, but an OpTic just played impeccable search and destroy for like 4 rounds, from the 2-4 round to the 6-4 rounds, and they go out top 8. To me, not only when this result happened, I was like, this isn't good enough. The team needs to change, because if you're aiming to win championships and you've come top 6, top 8 your first 2 tournaments, and all the talk going into the season was like, look, we just want to be there on Championship Sunday to give ourselves a chance, have failed to do that 2 majors in a row, the team isn't good enough. And salt in the wounds is when the two players that you've benched at a point and then let go at the end of the season in Slasher and Hook both go on to win the event on your arch rival team, which just that is salt in the wounds right there. So obviously they wanted to get their revenge to a degree, but at the same time it's like you have to ask questions of management maybe. Yeah, I think Slasher and Kenny were probably done for as a duo. They obviously kept Kenny and trusted his words over Slasher. Is that going to come back to bite them, right? I think there's many questions with this team because I still rate Kenny very highly, but you can't lie that Slasher just broke his 1,000-day winning streak and Kenny has failed to do so and doesn't look like doing so anytime soon, despite having never been benched from a team in his career. Including this Los Angeles Thieves roster. I still don't think you should do that, but I think you need a change in what the main AR role looks like because you are going to continue to get absolutely embarrassed in the respawns and in search and destroys as they have been lately. Even when Octane has a good search and destroy map, they still lose. So I don't think they went game 5 with OpTic is a valid excuse because this event was crazy and a team like this is a team that could have made a run like an LAG. But didn't happen at all. So what do you think, Austin? Going into the year, we kind of weighed up these two teams, and I always thought that one of these two teams would be a letdown. I think we picked correctly that LAG were going to be the more promising one, even though not with their actual roster they won the event with. But anyway, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I vividly remember actually that we said during that podcast that our one red flag is how these two ARs are going to stack up with each other because only one of them is going to really be able to take the power spots all the time. The other one's going to have to have a little bit of a give and take. And we're kind of seeing that kind of came to fruition. I mean, both of the ARs are just absolutely struggling. Octane just does not. I mean, quite honestly, Octane was fantastic in Black Ops 4, and we really haven't seen that since. Obviously, he's been on lackluster teams, but at the same time, he's not been the best. This year, he just does not look like this is his game, like whatsoever. And maybe that can change, but in reality, a lot of the slower ARs are struggling in this game, and he's kind of leading the way on that front. Kenny seems to be like the most mysterious player where he puts up like a 1.2 sometimes and then like puts up like a 0.6 in some of these series.
Yeah,
I really don't know
6-6,
why.
I think, or something in this
Yeah, I really don't know why. I kind of want to go through and like break it down to figure it out because I think Kenny is like very gifted with gun skill. But at the same time, the YYing kills me because it gets him killed so often. But it's so weird to see him kind of getting smoked. Draza was getting smoked in the qualifiers. Like honestly, the only one that's been really doing really good is Envoy. He's been carrying this team to even having close series. Without him, I don't even know what this team would look like right now. He's just been willing this team to some map wins. So it'll be interesting how they do because management is very involved with this team. They're very hands on. Like obviously, this is the team that expects to win. We said this last week. This is probably one of the worst teams to lose on because fans expect you to be very good. The organization has been winning championships in every game. If they don't, then they make changes. And so, that's what sucks to be like for the players is they probably just have so much external pressure on them. And then they probably have a lot of internal pressure because these guys expect to be winning. If you look at the names, Envoy, Kenny, Octane have all won championships in the past. Even Straza, I don't think he's won a tournament yet.
Yeah, I guess simply not.
The other three, have won tournaments and expect to win tournaments when they're together. They definitely don't expect to be in the bottom 4, which is where they're at. And quite honestly, when I look at the the standings again, like yes, they have 70 points, but everybody just caught up to them now. They are now vulnerable. They're tied for 8th. They are tied with Florida and Seattle with 70 points, and they are 45 points behind LAG now, which is a lot. Like that is a lot.
It's a big margin, actually. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so if just one of the bottom 4 teams right now, which is Toronto, Minnesota, New York, and Paris, if one of those 4 teams gets their shit together, and LA Thieves continues to struggle, like they are honestly in red alert for not making champs, which is probably if their organization hears that, they are pretty. It's just pretty unacceptable. So I do hope because I honestly like a lot of these guys. Again, I think Kenny's one of the most naturally gifted players. I think he's tremendous. I think Envoy is amazing. Like I think what he's doing right now, it's just showing how valuable he is to a team. So, I just think I really do think it's a confidence issue, a confidence mentality issue. There's no way you go from being the best hardpoint team, like it was like us, them, and OpTic as the top 3 hardpoint teams, and honestly London, and then all of a sudden you just fall to being one of the worst, and you're looking like you're getting reverse swept now. You're getting 3-0'd. It's just not the LA Thieves we thought we were going to get at the beginning of the season. So, but on the bright side, you have a lot of talent. Honestly, people meme him, but JCap is a very great X's and O's coach. Very great. He knows what he's talking about. He is very gifted at that side of it. So there is still a lot of positives. Honestly, I think if they can just get the ball rolling, even just a little bit during the qualifiers, they could be, chugging back along.
Yeah, I think I said this last week, but that loss, first match of stage 2 to OpTic, when they should have won, even though they got outslayed by like 90, that was the dagger, eh? Like, because since then it's been
Well,
painful.
our reverse sweep when they were up 2-0 at the major,
yeah, right.
I thought that was the dagger, and then they kind of went in, and then that was just like twisting the knife when they lost that first qualifier match.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And then they come into this major. They did more than I expected, to be fair. I thought they were just going to get bopped out by subliners. And then they almost beat OpTic. It's pretty crazy. But if we look at the stats, boys, Kenny 0.8 in hardpoint, Octane 0.8 in hardpoint, Kenny 0.7 in SND at the major. It's crazy. Like, to be fair, Draza was actually quite consistent stats.
He was actually all right this major. That's the thing. Draza actually played pretty well.
He was like
Yeah.
a 0.94.
They still got bodied.
And like that's it's okay for an SMG. That's not something you really.
It's not bad in this year. That's really not bad
Yeah.
this year.
But yeah, it's just inconsistency across the board. I think you just can't have Kenny and Octane together. I think in theory it didn't even look good to start with when you look at their 2 play styles. And honestly, Octane's had the worst run of teams since the CDL. It's so unfair for him. He was a really good player in Modern Warfare.
Is it unfair though? This is the question. This is the question.
I think from his perspective, he thinks it's pretty unfair. First year, he played great, but he was on a
good,
really,
bro.
really bad team in Seattle Surge. They moved to 4v4. They changed up the roster on Seattle Surge. They get smoked again, but he drops like a 1.9 for the year. And then he comes in here. They look good for the first stage, and then now they lose their confidence. And I'm wondering, I don't really want to say this, but does Octane have that confidence issue? Is it him as well as the whole team? Because years prior, we thought that he was just in a sticky situation, but it might be the whole culture that surrounds these players together. So I don't know.
It's just tough. I mean,
I can imagine LA wanting to make changes, but then also realizing they looked like kind of fools last year by changing every stage and then nothing happening. So this year, I think
that's
they've got their finger on the trigger, but they're not willing to press it yet. So I don't know. I would love to see them make a change, but also at the start of the year, we thought that this team on paper could be good. Nah.
Leadership, man. I think they do have a leadership issue. Like who's, in game calling the shots, who's like rallying the troops. Honestly, it's going to be very difficult to find another AR to plug and play into this roster. Like if you even put Kenny on the main AR back to where he was in Cold War, which I don't like the main AR and flex thing, especially this year. Well, this year is actually starting to change, but if you put him back onto a slower role where he's more slower, and then you get a flex AR who's kind of flying with Draza and Envoy, it could work. But the question is where do you find that? And right now it's very hard. At the same time, they just like their crown jewel of the offseason was getting Octane from Seattle, right? So it's like now 6 months after that, you're benching him, selling him. Like it seems very difficult to make that decision. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to get it right for this next major. Like they are going to be probably have the most pressure on them in the entire league. Well, probably not actually, but the bottom 4 teams will have a ton of pressure to make it in the COD champs here. But out of the teams in the top 8, they will have the most pressure to succeed and do well in this next major, even at the Pro-Am, honestly. If they if they lose to the amateur team in their pool, like that might spark something. So like yeah, I do feel bad because obviously this could have gone a completely different way at the beginning of the year. It just sucks to see them kind of in this position now. I do hope they get it together. So we'll see. The next month of practice is going to be very, very important for them to make it for the rest of the year.
Honestly, if they can somehow revitalize the vibes, fair play, because I can't imagine it's not chalked. But yeah, blow LAT up, question mark in the chat. We've got to move on to the top 6 brackets because here we find OpTic Texas, right? Not the weekend they were looking for. They get 3-0'd by Seattle in very remarkable fashion, losing their first control in 15 games. I think they were on a 14 streak. They then beat Minnesota. They then took down LA Thieves, of course, and then they lost to Florida in the third round of losers in another surprising series, again going down 2-0, winning the control, and then getting pretty comfortably outplayed on the final hard point. Really interesting weekend for them because I thought they looked surprisingly vulnerable from what I thought they would be coming in here with a 15-3 map count from the regular playoffs or for the regular qualifiers. Individually, if anything, they played not better because Illy didn't play nearly as well as he did at stage 1, but Dashi was basically the same. Scump, I think, was maybe slightly less impactful. Shotzi was actually at stage 1 major relatively quiet in terms of he didn't have crazy stats. Like, he had a few maps where he was pretty woeful, but the rest of the team carried him through. This time it was Shotzi was going off, and yet they still couldn't really find results, which was a concern for them because Shotzi's playing out of his skin. Of course, we'll talk about the veto situation in a second because we did mention that, and Shafi's mentioning it here in the chat. I think Rambo also said that their team play seemed to be off this weekend. Their search and destroy was probably their letdown because I think there were 3-4 in hard points, 1-4 in search, and 3-1 in control. And 1-4 in search isn't really going to do it, especially if you're losing game 1s as they did in every single series they played. And I guess they lost game 2s in every single. Yeah, no, actually, Minnesota, they always win the game 1 because it's Minnesota, so ignore that strategy. But, we got to mention vetoes as well here, real quick. The only time they ever looked good in search was in those 4 rounds they played on Tuscan against Thieves. But in terms of vetoes, I was kind of surprised at some of the maps they picked. They went down the Desert Siege route. I think the whole Gavutu versus Florida pick was, I think, understandable, but also kind of interesting just because Florida, even since right at the end of the Major 2 qualifiers, were looking really good on Gavutu with their 4 AR setup they pull out. And yes, OpTic are very comfortable there, but I thought that was an interesting decision. And also for the Seattle game, there was a lot of talk about the vetoes and the way that was handled, like the control, for example, picking a Tuscan control where Seattle are actually good as opposed to a Gavutu control where Seattle are woeful, even though OpTic are great at both maps, was very questionable. And I think Rambo actually went on to say, and there was talk about this on Hector's Eavesdrop podcast, that the team and him disagreed. He did the vetoes himself, and then after the series, the team was talking to him about, why did you choose that? We wanted this, which is interesting. The way that all that was structured. And I think that there's been some talk about the fact that they've maybe let their main map pool slip to a degree just by kind of prioritizing the expansion. It's like, you can expand your map pool all you like, but if you can't get to a best of 9 in the grand finals to use the map pool, then it's worthless, right? And even if you have been focusing on expanding your map pool, LAG come in without even thinking about their map pool, and they spec phase 5-2 in the finals. So maybe expanding a map pool is overrated. But
there's only 10 maps. Is how you...
Well, exactly, yeah. What do you think, Austin? Interesting weekend for OpTic. They come top 6. Obviously, there are many upsets this tourney, but certainly surprising the manner of their defeats. I think that if these had both been kind of weird game 5s or something, it'd be almost acceptable, but they haven't lost in a fashion like this all season. This is their first 3-0. This is the first time they looked like the second best team, to be honest, because they lost those 2 series, game 5, round 11, that they probably should have won right at the start, and then since then they've won everything. So, interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they lost this and probably don't think twice about it. They're probably on to the next one to say this is just a bad major for us, just a bad tournament. We've all had those. They get bopped out. It's whatever. They'll come back next time around. They'll be fine. So I doubt internally they're in any they're probably just pissed that they lost. On the outside, I actually didn't like that they kind of talked about, the complaints about the shared practice room, that they let the vetoes thing come out. Like, I don't think
We
that's a
love a
good
good
look.
complaint, man. I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
like, there's no team that complains like OpTic. That's just facts.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's probably rich coming from me, but like at the same time, I don't think that was a good look letting that come out. Just because now other teams will probably think like, oh, this is our chance to kind of get our one up. They're having internal problems, like you know what I mean. Like, and I just think like those things should just be left, like the veto stuff, that should just be left internally. That should just be talked about internally. I don't know if that thing should be coming out on a podcast necessarily, but to each their own. Like I did think their vetoes were like I hate talking about vetoes because honestly, like a lot of teams, including myself, we base vetoes off of practice, off of everything. It's some matches, some practice, some matches against other teams. You want to see what their weaknesses are. Maybe you have a philosophical difference in one team on certain hills of a map that you think you can expose. Like we played Crossroads against Dallas last year because we knew we liked our matchup on that, even though both teams are good on it. But we liked certain things on the map that we were doing. We thought we could, so that's why it's really hard to discuss vetoes. But at the same time, like I was looking at the vetoes, like I have all of them up. I was looking at Seattle. Against Seattle, they were 0-2 in Gavutu control. Like when we played them on Gavutu control, I was actually very happy because I thought that was going to be. I actually no, we picked Gavutu control against them. I think because we were the higher seed. I thought Gavutu control OpTic was very good on it. I thought for sure they would play that. They picked Tuscan, which was like Seattle's best map, and I was just like, that's very interesting. And then then they also got Tuscan S&D in there, which Seattle was 2-0 on going into that matchup. They looked very strong on that. I thought that was questionable. And then you go into the Minnesota series and you get Berlin to end the series. Which if I ask you what are Minnesota's best maps, you're probably gonna say Berlin Hardpoint and Berlin S&D.
Definitely don't want to play the Berlin Search Game 5. That is not what you want to do. Thankfully, we didn't
Yeah,
go there, but
yeah, and if you look at all these series, it shows that OpTic is willing to play every single map, right? It was just interesting the maps that they picked against certain teams. You know what I mean? They were vetoing. Honestly, they vetoed Gavutu versus LA Thieves. It's pretty much a meme. The Gavutu thing. LA Thieves' best maps are Berlin and Tuscan. Like those are their two best maps. It's been that way for a while. The whole Gavutu thing started because of league play. Don't chalice on Gavutu is actually from league play. So that's why teams, square up on Gavutu. Like they're still a very good Gavutu team, but they are lethal or they were lethal at the time on Berlin. They were actually phenomenal on that, and they played LA Thieves on Berlin, and then the one versus uh, uh, Florida. They played the Gavutus. So it was interesting where they picked and chose their maps. Obviously, that is a whole team conversation. I'm sure they probably went into every series feeling somewhat confident on the map sets, but on the looking from the outside in, I just remember thinking like these are very winnable maps for the opposition, But at the same time, there's only 10 maps in the goddamn game, so it's not even like you can kind of win vetoes. It just ends up being very iffy no matter what. And with the whole expanding your map pool thing, that is a conversation when you have 5, 5, and 3. That's 13 different maps you got to work on. Now we have 10, 4, 4, 2. It's not very hard to expand your map pool to 7, 8 good maps. So the conversation about did they let their main map slip? I don't think so. I just think a lot like when you are the top team, everybody's watching you. Everybody is giving you your A game. It's the same thing we've had against us for the last 2 years now. It's very difficult. You're gonna have your slumps. You're gonna have your ups and downs. We've had it in the past. It's just when you're the top team, you have to be hungrier than every team below you because the second you're not, teams are gonna start getting closer and closer. And I think this is more of just a wake up call to keep pushing and to keep getting ahead. Because that's what they're going to have to do the next month is kind of reset and then come back stronger because teams are starting to study them and kind of adapt and find an edge somewhere.
Yeah. Who do you guys think was the X factor in stage 1?
Daily.
There you go. This stage, well, this major, he played nowhere near his potential. I think Scump also played a little bit worse than we're used to seeing as well, especially in Search and Destroy. Shotzi and Dashy were frying as we've come to expect. But I just think for this OpTic Texas team to be playing at their very best, like they did in Major 1, Illy needs to be playing at that godlike level that he played and like that he dominated with in the last major. So yeah, I don't think there's any issues with this team. I just think they got a bad tournament out of a couple of their players, and it didn't go their way this time. I think you're right with the vetoes, but then in this year, vetoes aren't really as important, just like you said. And yeah, it was just disappointing to watch because getting destroyed in their first match by Seattle, that was, I mean, didn't they face them on, was it Bocage map 1?
Yeah,
And
which
like,
again is
Yeah.
like strange to me. You
Because
know,
yeah, so I just
that's
said that vetoes didn't
Seattle are
matter.
great at
But
that map.
yeah, I would say that's
thing.
Seattle's best hard point right now.
Yeah. Like you always see Sib and Pred frying on that map. And so it just seemed like the strangest veto to make. But other than that, I don't think the vetoes were too horrendous. But yeah, just Illy with 0.7 in SND, 0.7 in control, 0.9 in hardpoint. Scump had a 0.69 in search and destroy. So it was just these like small inconsistencies within the team that I think we didn't expect going in. Because for the whole stage they were extremely good. They went 5-0 in qualifiers, and then get bodied first match on LAN. So yeah, I think this is just a slip in the road. This thing happens with teams, I think, every year. Apart from, I guess, you guys, Austin. You guys always seem to be
In
consistently
the
good.
grand finals, man.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
consistent in the grand finals right now. 2-5, 2-5.
Let's
Consistent
go.
all around.
Yeah, 4-10, maybe. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. It's a weird one. The whole Illy thing. I'm kind of concerned that this is. I think this. The way it works with OpTic fans, because there's so many of them, that OpTic fans are always looking for a reason. And I think this time, some OpTic fans gravitated to the whole, oh, we messed up the vetoes situation. Now, next time, if Illy doesn't perform, it's time to scapegoat Illy, you know? We predicted it before the season begins. If OpTic don't win, who's the scapegoat? Illy is the only man who can be scapegoated. So it's unfortunate with the role he plays and what he brings to the team, but he didn't play his best, which is clear as well. So, you know, that's the thing. If OpTic don't win and this happens again, then the fans are going to be on Illy's neck, like on his back. Let's just say that for sure. Other top 6 team, Seattle Surge. They got so unlucky this event. I really frustrated that we didn't get to see. I wanted Brandon to have a good run here, but they obviously beat OpTic. Great result there. They play FaZe. Max unwell. He's throwing up game 1. Like he's talking about some dodgy food at the venue. There was lots of talk about dodgy food at the venue. He gets ill. He comes back anyway. He plays through it. He goes off on the main stage game 4 to take him to game 5. And up 5-4 last map against FaZe. You guys have the eyes. Close out 6-5. But, you know, honestly, unbelievable. I thought that Seattle were going to win that series. Then they play LAG. Classic comes in because Mac is still unwell and decides he probably shouldn't continue. And even that series goes game 5. And LAG do one of their trademark hardpoint things. So, you know, I don't know. I feel like their full strength roster with Mac at kind of like full capacity. Probably had a top 4 on the cards here at least, which recaptured some of their kickoff form. I think they're also much better prepared for the OpTic series than OpTic were for them, which just shows the work they've been putting in behind the scenes. So impressed by Seattle. Shame they didn't get to play with their full team the whole way, but I think this will be a great confidence boost for those guys that kind of needed a tournament to say, yes, we are here to play. We can have, you know, we can be competitive. They could have very easily got top 3 here if that had been you guys, Austin.
Yeah, you know, it was tough when Matt got sick. He still played phenomenal. Like he was the best player of that series. So like I don't like that dinged it too hard, but like he played phenomenal. I really do think he's their best player. Like even though stats might not say it, he's like their most impactful player on the map. Everything he does. So, and I think he's very major in the comms. He's just a great player. So losing him against LAG, it was always going to be really tough. They still almost did it with Classic. If they had their full roster versus against LAG, I really do think they probably could have beat them. And then I really would have think we would have saw them in the finals. They were looking very good. You know, it's tough, but at the same time, you guys are now tied for 6th place. You're looking good on the CDL point side. Not great, but you're looking good. And if they can come out and kind of carry this momentum, because they can probably come out of this major saying we did a lot of great things. Let's build upon this and let's do even better. So I have a feeling we're going to see this team get better and better the rest of the way. We kind of said that last week too, that they're a younger roster. They need time to mesh, kind of get their confidence under them. Let Lamar really take the reins, and Stan and Brandon behind there is doing a lot of work for them. So yeah, I'm not disappointed by this result if I'm them, and I'm gonna definitely build upon that, and they're gonna be a really scary team to play against, no matter what matchup, no matter when. So yeah, I would definitely look out for them the next month to improve and get a lot better.
Yeah, especially after 3-0ing OpTic, that was extremely impressive. But man, that Gather 2 control against LAG, where Classic dropped what? Was it 15 and 31? Was something bad, whereas Sib dropped a 40 bomb. That should have been it.
Yeah.
They should have gone up 2-1 at that stage and then won the hard point, and that would have been lights out. But no, sadly, that did not happen for them. Mac, though, incredible. He had a 1.32 in hard point for this event, even though he was throwing up, which is wild. 34 kills per 10 minutes, which is like easily the top in the league. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this team should take a lot of positives out of this. It's just extremely unlucky circumstances. Don't eat food at the venue. I think that's pretty much.
Oh, he didn't eat it, I guess, because like I can explain it to you.
Go on.
It was horrible. So for those who don't know, we're in shared rooms. So think of it as like a kind of like a conference room, and they split it by like curtains in the four. So when you walk in, it was like Seattle on the left, we were on the right, and then you go a little bit farther down, and it was Boston on the right and Florida on the left. And we were all there early, just chilling, warming up. Boston had this big fucking boom box that had the whole room jamming. We were all vibing in there. And then all of a sudden, this like, bro, it smelled like feet. It smelled so bad. I just remember thinking like, what the fuck is that? It literally smelled horrible. And like everyone was like saying something, everyone was laughing about it. It ended up Sib got fettuccine Alfredo. It was only him. It wasn't Mac. I don't know what Mac was having, but yeah, Sib was having fettuccine Alfredo from the Italian truck, and it smelled like straight feet, bro. And then the funniest thing happened. Claire, who's like the league rep, like she turns on the curtain, and it's a Sib eating fettuccine Alfredo without a shirt on. And he's just getting there ready for the day. And but then like yeah, so moral of the story is like that food at that casino was just not good. There was not a lot of good food, but yeah, who knows? That might have, Mac might have had something bad at one of the places there. But overall, yeah, interesting food there.
Man, that is quite the show. Yeah, that's tough. It's tough. I mean, similar stories across the board. Unfortunate stuff, lots of thoughts about Arlington, baby. Got to get back in business. But yeah, let's move on from Seattle. We've got to move into the top four. Florida Mutineers, baby, out of nowhere, they pick up a top four placing. Really interesting. Like, don't get me wrong, they looked a lot better here. They obviously beat London game 1. They then lost to Mutineers, or lost to Mutineers. They lost to Breach, and then they beat OpTic, of course. They came top 4. They lost to Boston 3-2, lost to LAG 3-2. Their game 5 search is still Bofa. Like, they have 0 ice game 5. Like, they're up 5-3, map 5, to knock LAG out of the tourney. And they choke it, lose 6-5 Desert Siege. That is remarkable. Look, I don't know. To me, I feel like it was only a matter of time until Florida had a tournament like this where they look good, they make a good run. I'm sure they've got a lot of confidence in themselves, but they're still not a team that can win an event. Like, they're still impressive in the respawns. They used to be like the Picard specialists, and now they're running 4 ARs on Gav to great effect. And I do wonder if teams start to veto that, they'll get exposed a little bit, because, I don't know, to me, this team actually, all of the individuals play to their potential, I think, this weekend, which put them to a point where they can upset top teams and get great results. But from my perspective, I'm just not convinced. in the long term, this team is actually going to be the play. Yes, congratulations, nice little top 4, but you know, just no ice when it matters. So I still aren't giving this team all that much credit, to be perfectly honest. Do you know what you think, Austin? Because maybe they deserve it more than I'm willing to dish out.
I still think they're top. I would say they're in the top 8 pretty firmly. I think they're still a good team. They have a lot of talent. Like gun skill wise, they're very good at their ones. But putting it together as a team, that's very hard to against the top teams. They've been slowly doing that over the past month. They've been getting a lot better. But at the same time, their S&D does look, iffy, and their map pool is kind of not there at all times. So they kind of can get left out in the open in certain vetoes if they're matched up against a team that doesn't like the same maps that they do. So that's something they're going to have to work on the next couple months. But anytime you place top 4, especially in this CDL format, is a win. I would still be taking this in stride. Who did they beat? They beat London. They beat Texas, and then they should have beat LAG. They played them very, very tight. So I would not, put my head down on that. You still have 2 great wins under your belt. So this is another team that, if they can keep putting it together, I think some of the fundamentals were like in the teamwork side, if they can sharpen that up, then they can continue to get like top 6 placing in the future. So that's not bad. I would take that.
It's good for champs points.
Yeah. Yeah, they looked really good in respawn. 5-2 in hardpoint, 3-1 in control. They were just 2-4 in S&D, and they lost those 2 extremely important game 5s. Which is just really unfortunate. We used to see them always playing Bacage hardpoint map 1. They didn't even play Bacage at all this event in any game mode, which is pretty wild.
That's mad.
Yeah, but it was just the S&D, really. I think Skies had a 1.5, which is wild. 1 kill per round, whereas the rest of the team, no one was above a 0.83, which is crazy. So, yeah, I think their respawn's looking strong. It's just the S&D that really needs to be worked on, I think. I think they're a really good team. Their hardpoint has proved to be really good. Yeah, each player's holding their weight as well. Yeah, I mean, I would just like to see them get better at S&D, and I can see them making a really, really deep run. I think if they could find like their S&D form, like somehow LAG did out of nowhere, then I can imagine them being a top 4 team, honestly.
Yeah, I think they could maybe get a top 4 again. I don't see them getting any better than this personally, just on the consistency front, but we shall see.
Did you think the LAG were going to come out and win an event out of nowhere? It can happen, man.
But LAG are a different team to Florida. LAG have Slasher, they have a Seam, they have players of a higher caliber, and they also have players with pedigree and with experience and with championship winning, ability under their belt.
There.
Yeah, but we're not shitting on them for the first half of the year, the whole time. And then now they win an event, and all these players are extremely talented. They've got Slasher.
But come on, like we said going into the season that LAG had a lot more potential. That's what
I think we were on Slasher because he was just consistently not putting it together. So like he was like, because I remember in the first major he had like a 0.5, didn't he? He like really struggled. And
yeah,
so
the shock on first line.
They still had I still think ASIM is one of the most valuable SMGs in the league. They have Hook, who is just relentless on the entry side of it. And so when they finally figured out the pacing, which I do think the big switch is Gunless and Slasher were on the slower side, Spart brought that more speed, more aggression. It lined up great with their 2 SMGs. It kind of reinvigorated the roster. That's what they needed. That's why they had that up. Now, what you do to Florida to get to that level that's going to be a little bit more difficult, because I think right now they're hitting their high level. But we'll see. They might reach another peak.
It's a good point.
They might do. Let's talk Boston, because they get top 3. They have written down here they got 3'd by Boston. That wasn't true. They beat Gooorillas game 1. They 3'd them. They then beat Mutineers to get guaranteed top 3. Got 3'd by FaZe. Then got 3-2'd by Gooorillas in the lower finals. A very achievable grand finals here for Boston, given the way the tournament worked out. Didn't happen for them. You've got to say that given that they're looking at their league play matches and now looking at their bracket here at the major, you've got to say this is like the easiest run a team is ever going to get to top 3. Like the easiest run ever to get to winners. They beat a Gooorillas with a substitute round 1, where of course they They was their first series with Spart, pretty much like at the major. I think that was when they were at their weakest, and then they just got going and got momentum as the tournament got on and like got more comfortable. They then beat a Mutineers game 5, and Mutineers love losing a good game 5. Get pretty much smoked by FaZe. I know they should have won the control, but like the series was pretty comfortable for FaZe. And then they go game 5 with Gorillas. Capsule shoots bodies and learns his lesson to don't shoot Thanos' body, or he's going to go like 10 in 1 of the next few rounds or whatever he did. So, lesson learned on that front. But still, Boston, impressive. I do, my concern is that this, again, as with Florida, is going to be the highest they're going to get all season. Like, I think that they're going to have a tough time breaching top 3. I think that and also when they play FaZe, they just play different. Like, Zinni dropped like a 1.4 every single series he played, and against FaZe he had like a 0.9 or something. I swear this guy plays different when he plays FaZe. He's like, I don't know, just a bit more timid maybe. I'm not sure, but I'm not convinced they'll get top 3 again. I gotta say, I still think they are like a top 3, top 4, top 5 team in the game right now. But I still do wonder whether long term, if TJ stays in this roster. I think Method has been great. I think the rookie SMG duo was great. But I don't know, TJ wasn't quite, he's impactful, but he wasn't quite the player that maybe where you're going to upgrade anywhere, maybe TJ's the guy you consider upgrading. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
think that happens this season, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't know if TJ is the guy I'm looking at. I'm personally
Austin back in TJ. Let's go.
I'm personally looking at Neuro. I think TJ has a 1.09 in S&D. I think he's been making a lot of plays in S&D that have been
his
making
search
them.
has been good.
His search has been really good, and I think that's impacting some of their wins. He has been a little bit lackluster in the respawns. I'll give you that. He's definitely someone that needs to step it up on consistency wise on that front. But Neuro also just dropped a 0.88 over the course of stage 2. Like that is the same as Prestini had in his one match. He has a 0.73 in S&D. He has a 0.87 in control. Sometimes he just looks like he's lightning fast, like too far ahead of his team. The pacing's his way off. So like obviously he has a lot to learn on the pacing side of it, but like sometimes you got to know when to slow down a little bit. I think that's the lesson he's starting to learn this stage. But like quite honestly, Capsule and Methods have been just absolutely lighting it up. Like those guys were like MVP candidates for the stage. And then I think like TJ like did his role in S&D but struggled in respawn. And then I think Neuro was just kind of like doing his role at times, but also kind of getting put in the blender like way too often. Like I think it's like the weirdest phenomenon. I've seen him drop like just as many 0.5s as like 1.5s. You know what I mean? Like sometimes he just like lights it up and he's just disgusting. And then next, he has like a bow cage where he's like 17 and 34.
He's like a Jimbo, really, isn't he? He's like
that's what he reminds me of.
Jimbo, I think.
That's what he reminds me of. And like
I think it's because
now,
like he impresses me. Like sometimes he has a moment he goes off, and it like impresses me enough to think like, wow, they should keep this guy. But looking at the stats, it does tell a slightly different story.
Yeah, and it's really hard because SMGs are loaded right now, and like I mean, if you run down the list, he's like probably he's probably in like 20th on the SMG list. Like SMGs are loaded this year. There's a lot of good SMGs, so it's really tough. He's facing stiff competition on that side. But I really do think if Neuro and TJ can find consistency in the respawns, and Neuro and S&D as well, this team can keep this momentum, can keep being that top 3 team. It's just that's at the forefront of it right now. Because if he's, as you just said, they probably had the easiest schedule, and if he's dropping a 0.88 on the easiest schedule you can have, that's a little bit concerning. And if TJ has a 0.98, but he had a 0.93 in hardpoint. If that's against the easiest schedule in the league, again, like that's going to have to improve when you start facing harder teams, harder schedules. But so far, they're doing what they've had to do. They're in 3rd place. Honestly, I thought for sure they were going to be in the grand finals. That was a very good run. Obviously, talking to Zed and Dens, like they have good heads on the shoulders. They can still, improve. They just have to find that consistency out of those two. Like those are their biggest X factors, is whether or not those guys show up on the map. At least that's what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, I agree. Methods had the best stage in any pro league that he's had ever. He had a 1.3 for the entire stage, which is madness. I don't think any of us.
World War II Methods right here.
It was
maybe better than World War II. You said
it was
in
better than World War II's Zinni, because back in World War II, he had an extremely good KD. He played the map perfectly, but he wasn't like the ultimate slayer on that team. They had Slasher on that team as well. They had like prime TJ as well. It was such a good squad. Did they have Gunless at that time as well? No. They brought in Gunless after that for
Yeah, after that.
they had Looney as well. So it was a really cohesive roster. And so I think his presence on this team at this stage was far more impactful. But do you guys know the map count of Boston Breach versus Atlanta FaZe this year? And don't switch it up, Austin. Can you think of it in the top of your head?
0-9.
It's 1-9.
1-9.
1-9.
I knew it was. I knew we played them 3 times. I didn't know if they
Oh,
won a map
no.
yet.
Yeah, 1-9. They won one map in the first series you played in stage 1 qualifiers. So
Let me guess.
they
Control.
have a block against you guys, and without playing you, they're 10-5, and then their map record is 38-26. Like without playing you guys, they look good, but then they come up against just the slightly higher tier above roster and get bodied. So I think yeah, if there was going to be a change, it would be Nero, but I doubt they make a change because they just got a top 3 placing. I think they're probably quite confident.
Yeah,
with
they're
that.
good for now.
Well, it makes you
Just not
question though.
seeing-
If you
Go.
just had a top 3 and like you have some inconsistencies, are you thinking we should have had top 2, like won the tournament? But at the same time, I think they're probably saying like we just had a lot of growth in the past 2 months, 3 months. They're
Yeah.
probably going to be, getting a little bit better as we go. But those are definitely giving me questions for the future. It's questions every team's going to have at
Yeah.
the same time.
I just can't see. Well, I can see it, but the likelihood of Zenny dropping a 1.3 for the next stage, that's going to be so hard to follow up. And if you want to have the same success, he's going to have to probably do something similar. So
Yeah, that's the concern, regression to the mean there. Like maybe he drops a 1.2 or 1.15, but that's
that
not
might
going
be
to.
a series losses extra.
Yeah, it might be a top 6.
He had a 1.29 or higher in all 3 modes. Like
Yeah.
he had a 1.33 in hardpoint, 1.43 in S&D, and 1.29 in control. Like that is just fry season all around in all 3 modes, man.
Yeah.
Damn.
That doesn't happen. That happens like one player per stage, if ever. Like that's crazy.
Usually Dashy as well. It's like,
Yeah.
So credit where it's due to Zen, man.
Yeah.
Like awesome to see because he wasn't going to be in the league if the 12 team didn't happen because it was going to be 11. Well, probably was never going to be 11, but like it was talked about it might be 11, and he wouldn't have had a spot. And then Washington fell through. So you got to give credit where it's due. Let's talk grand finals. The team that vanquished Boston. At least in the winners finals. Atlanta FaZe, baby. You guys make another grand finals. Congratulations. Clutched up against Seattle, smoked Boston, had a good early round, obviously beating subliners comfortably. Look, it's not Cold War FaZe. I don't know if any team ever again will be Cold War FaZe apart from, complexity in the OpTic dynasties. Inconsistencies in the SMG players. Don't get me wrong, it's tough to be an SMG in this game. Like, it's often getting smoked, see, but it's interesting, right? Given the fact that aBeZy and Simp where they were last year, to see them getting kind of smoked in grand finals until at least game 4. Generally, just a little bit less relentless than last year. Ruthless, I think was the word I used last week. Still making grand finals anyway, back to back. The most insane stat I think I've saw the weekend was someone mentioned it and I looked it up that if you include the Kickoff Classic, that's 21 events Simp has played in his career. I guess all of them with aBeZy, but aBeZy played some more before, so I looked at Simp instead of aBeZy. But he's made the grand finals in 76% of the events that he has played, which is not bad. He's made the grand finals 16 out of 21 events. And if you're making grand finals almost every time, you're going to win a lot of events. But he's only won like 8 out of those 16. So you do have to think grand finals clutch factor is slightly questionable because, I don't know. It seems like FaZe... I don't know what you guys think about this, but this grand finals defeat was something that it's not like it's unacceptable, but it's very much unexpected. I think most people thought that you would take care of LAG. Now a 4-10 map count in finals, went 2-5, 2-5. You're making finals. That's great, but we want to win. And I don't know, it was quite interesting to me watching because I would not have put money on... If LAG were going to win this series, I would have thought, okay, they're going to keep some crazy search run up. Their search has been better than your guys. Your search was kind of lackluster. But I was looking at this series thinking, okay, well, FaZe just won game 1. Even if they lose game 2, they've got 2 controls. They should win both controls. And they've got like a couple hard points. FaZe should win this like 5-2, 5-3. I would not have expected it to go the other way, especially with those 4 maps that Boston or that LAG won in a row, like just reeling them off. I was like, that was, to me, that was LAG being great, but I was also FaZe kind of getting a bit shook. And I wonder if I'm a team playing FaZe in the grand finals, last year I was shitting myself. This year, I'm not shitting myself, because if I play FaZe in the grand finals, I know you guys are vulnerable. So, what do you think about that? Have I been too harsh?
Want me to go first or you?
Yeah, you can go first.
Bro,
Austin just preparing the
I think he
guns.
got choke slammed in the finals. I have no idea what that was about, but we've never seen that from him. And if he sees this, he might be quite angry at that take. But man, he had 0.84 in hardpoint, a 0.61 in S&D, and a 0.78 in control in the finals. Interesting. I think you made a good point, Rab, about their grand finals history. In what was it? Modern Warfare, you went
2 and 5.
2
I
and
think.
7. Oh, yeah.
I think it's 2 out of 7. Yeah.
Yeah. And then last year, you guys were extremely good, like the best you've looked. And then this year, what is it? It's anti-ice in the grand finals, Austin.
That's pretty fair. It's pretty fair to say. I don't know, like, I won't be like too harsh, but like, we literally got out teamworked by a pickup team, which is pretty unacceptable. Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy with second place. You're the first loser. This team isn't built to be coming in second place. Just it's pretty disappointing when you come in second place. Obviously, I don't want to be like an ass. Like other teams would think second place is great, but I don't know. I hear a lot of teams say like they don't care if they win or lose tournaments. It's champs at the end of the day. But in all honesty, like we come to tournaments to win them. You don't come for CDL points.
That's bollocks, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, everyone might think of it, but like, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, I'm happy that we just lost in Major 2 and not COD champs. You know what I mean? Like that's a positive, but at the same time, like I want to win everything. That's just my stance on stuff. Overall, during stage 2, I think we were the worst S&D team. But like literally, we have the most knowledgeable guy in the entire S&D scene, Pac, who has just been putting in work. Who the the best S&D team this stage, who just set the record for most S&D wins in a row, have been playing in his like S&D 8s nonstop over the past 2 weeks. Like he's been putting in a lot of work. We're doing the hard part. I keep saying this. We're doing the hard part right, which is get the opening duels, finishing up the opening duels. But sometimes we're just not doing good in the mid-round scenarios. That is just shooting ourselves in the foot, and it's costing us so many maps in S&D. And that's literally what cost us in this majors. We went 0-3 in S&D. If you take out the S&Ds, we're 2-2 in the map count.
Yeah.
I don't know. In the controls, we played so good in control up until that major, and then we won 1 offensive round out of I think 5. Which again, I think we should be doing better. I mean, at the end of the day, look, we'll take this again. I hate that I have to do this twice in a row after 2 tournaments. We'll take it like on the chin, and we'll have to really work hard this next month because I like if you go back and watch, like LAG is just setting up breaks. They're doing everything right, and that was a pickup team with no practice, like a week of practice. That should have been like that's the level we need to be at 24/7. Like it's because every team is going to be every team plays us and OpTic at 100%, 120%. They're giving it their all. They're watching the shit out of us every week. Like we cannot be lackluster on anything, or else we're gonna be like caught out. So that's just my mentality on stuff. We're gonna get there. Obviously, we did just run into a really hot team. That team was on freaking fire. And obviously S&D is again that's S&D wins championships. And they definitely had the advantage in that. So like I do think we just need to go back to the drawing board. Our S&D is I can guarantee you it's gonna get a lot better. That was something where everyone was kind of fuming watching us play S&D. We're gonna get a lot better. There's really no excuse. I think you'll see a much better team at the Pro-Am, and I think literally Major 3. I want Major 3 to be like a wake up call. Like I want it to be like we're back. We're kicking ass. Like I'm really excited to get back and really work hard the next couple of weeks. Like obviously most teams are taking the next week off, but after that, um, it's grind time. Like it's getting ready for champs time. Like
Yeah, and you guys
gotta put
have
the foot down.
a big lead in the standings now. 15-point lead over OpTic. I mean, you still haven't won an event is good. So you're definitely not in a bad spot at all. And I can imagine you guys come back stronger than ever because you are Atlanta FaZe.
It's FaZe, it's what they do.
Yeah, but in Tuscan you were 3-0 in the stage in control, and then in Gav you were 3-4. So I guess it's really just S&D and then Gav control. You need
Well, we're 2-1 with the new update on Gav control. I actually love our Gav control. Like that's why against
You
Seattle,
got
I
some
mean,
clutch factor on that for sure. Those offensive rounds.
against Seattle, we vetoed Tuscan control. We played them on Gavutu. Do we win Gavutu versus LAG? Actually, look.
No, you
No.
lost to
No.
Gavutu, but you won a Tuscan.
Gavutu
Yeah.
hard point map one.
So yeah, I mean, I honestly don't hate Gavutu control. I think what plagued us was the kills deciding map 5 because on defense we're very aggressive. We just throw lives just to make it harder for you to gain every inch, which kind of shoots yourself in the foot when round 5 is for lives. When round 5 is for ticks, we were actually statistically one of the better teams at capturing control points. So that kind of that's why I was saying we were the biggest benefactor of that change, and I think that will continue. It was the same thing actually in Cold War. Our pre and post change in Cold War was pretty much the same. So I'm actually kind of excited to see if our control can maintain that like progress throughout it. But we were 4-1 in control under the new patch. If you take out the OpTic loss when we had Pristini in.
Yep. So it's really just S&D, 3-4 at the major.
Oh no, it's literally just if we can get S&D. And honestly, I was very upset we lost 2 respawns to LAG. Like I really thought like, if we won the respawns, it would have been okay. But yeah, if we can just get better at S&D, which there's no reason not to. I mean, we have 4 of the most talented guys in S&D in COD history. We should never be losing S&Ds. We should never be losing 5 maps to anybody, and it's happened twice now. So yeah, just pretty much no excuses the next couple weeks. Got to be better. We will be better. So yeah, sucks. It does suck. I don't think anyone's happy with second place, which sounds crazy, but yeah, just I don't think anyone's happy with it at all.
That's the mindset, though. I mean, the other thing I'll say on this before we talk LAG is just that last year in stage 2, when you guys lost to Ultra, I felt like you guys still played great, and Ultra just played unbelievable COD for 8 maps or whatever. And I even kind of felt that stage 1 in a way, or major 1 finals, when I was like, you guys are still so hard to beat. I think you still proved that in this series, especially with the Tuscan control. But to me, LAG played well, but they didn't play spectacularly. Like, it's a team that didn't have all that much practice. Like, I think that they definitely could have been beaten here. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't play unbelievable, untouchable COD, which just, if anything, it teaches you guys a lot.
Yeah, and like again, like they played a lot of great rounds in those S&Ds. We just really needed to win the respawns, honestly, and we lost Gavutu and Tuscan Hardpoint, I think, or
Yeah, he lost I think it was Tuscan Hardpoint. Yeah,
and I just remember thinking like this team looks like a cohesive unit, and we're kind of playing fractured. We're kind of not playing our game, and I do think we had a lot of winnable rounds in the S&Ds, but at the same time, it's like we definitely got to be better. We definitely like that was not we played up to our potential and got beat. That was more of LAG played absolutely phenomenal and just took advantage of every single mistake that we were just making on the map. And that's not Atlanta FaZe COD. That's not what we want to be playing. So, even the OpTic major, we lost all the hard points, and then this one we lost all the S&Ds. It's like yeah.
Tough.
So we just need to get some consistency in one of those 2 modes for the next finals, and yeah, because we're getting there. we're playing good. Like we played New York very clean. I loved our New York match. We played Boston very clean. Loved the Boston match. I can't even remember who else we played. Um,
Seattle.
Seattle, like the Seattle match. The Seattle match was like both teams playing phenomenal against each other. I actually loved what we got out of that match. But then like, yeah, I don't care about the route. We got to finish it off, boys. We got to play solid against the team that we got to beat. And yeah, that's where we're gonna be. We're next time we're gonna play great out of 4 maps or 4 series instead of 3 and we're gonna get there. We're gonna be better. I know we're gonna be better coming up to this next major.
He just sub you in to bring that grand finals ice. Let's talk about the team that did have the ice. Unbelievable, this tournament. I mean, my first note is just WTF. Best losers running COD history. It was up there with the best ever before they even won the grand finals, let alone winning the thing. You know, Spart comes in, they lose their first series to Boston. Of course, as you said, I think it changed their pacing. I think that this is again something that we see, right? It's a very consistent trend with the teams that have kind of made changes and improved, that they've switched up what they're doing with their ARs, and one of their ARs has become more aggressive, whether that's a Paul X for Clayster, whether that's in this case as well, or, you know, and you wonder whether it could happen with other teams also that might make a similar move, like LA Thieves, Minnesota ROKKR, like they've tried similar things, or, well, they might try similar things. I mean, unbelievable, right? First of all, we've got to discuss the Volk meta, because Spart introduces that really this event. I think I heard that it was happening during the Boston series when they're already down 2-0. He brings that in the control, they get 3-0'd, and everyone's like, you know, what's the big deal? But as the tour went on, we saw what the big deal was. They casually, after losing the first Search and Destroy they played to Ultra in the losers round 1, won the next 10 Search and Destroys they played in a row, breaking the all-time record. The all-time CWL record, I think, is 12 from Gen G. I think Round 11 Stats pointed out back in Black Ops 4 when they were just like, you know, when Spacely was in the team and they just wouldn't lose a search but lose all the respawns. That was kind of what happened there. But that's just unbelievable. They're still on that run, obviously, going into the new side. Huge ice factor. I think Spart brought this kind of new energy and new vibe to the team, that they also kind of had this like nothing to lose type attitude, but I'm sure helped them to a degree. But Hook played impeccably in the grand finals, even though he didn't do all that much before then. Slasher really came to play, had a phenomenal event, rolled back the years, vintage Slasher. You know, this guy's his mental fortitude is great, and he's obviously a great player. We know that, right? If you guys are newer to the scene, you might not be familiar with what Slasher was doing on the regular back in the day, but no doubt in my mind, a top 3 assault rifle of all time, right behind Formal and Clayster. And he also shut down, you know, Los Angeles Thieves, right? He got another one over JCap, effectively, after benching him last year, going on to win the thing. Asim, I think I said it many times last year that Asim is like exactly the type of teammate you want. Just so, like, there's no one who's going to bring more positive vibes to a team than a guy like Asim. He's always looking on the bright side of things. He's exactly the type of guy you want in this situation when, you know, he's just gonna make you believe you can win. And having his ability as well, like incredibly impactful player. And that when Hook actually plays great as well, and when Spart is being hyper aggressive with the Volk and having great effects, then this team actually becomes like legitimately championship contenders, which is what they achieved, right? We saw coming into the season, we talked about Slasher, Gunless, Hook, and Asim should be a contending team for at least top 4. We thought they had the most potential out of the Los Angeles teams. I did not think that it would be a Spart for Gunless trade that actually makes it a reality. But, you know, we knew the potential was there. Of course, the whole question is it a fluke win? Will they do it again? I don't think they'll win another event. I think that there's an element of a miracle run here, but I do think you have to consider that with the talent on their team, you just cannot count them out being a contender. When Toronto won Stage 2 last year, I think a lot of people said, wow, like they made a change, they brought Insight in for methods, like that must have been a fluke win. They just got, you know, hot on Sunday, right? And one of those 4 series they played, or 3 series, or whatever one it was on Sunday. Whereas, and of course, at the end of the year, they come top 3 every event. Until now, they've fallen off. But like that happened then. Minnesota ROKKR, they won Stage 5. They go into Champs, still were very good at Champs. Came top 4, could have got top 3. Like, I don't think this team will just fall off a cliff if they keep the same roster, which is another question. But I can't see how you possibly put Spart back to the bench given this. It's tough for Gunners, it really is, because he was unwell. But surely you can't break up a championship winning roster. That leaves questions about Gunless. I think could Gunless go elsewhere? I don't even know. There's so many storylines and questions and talking points, and the Volk getting GA'd, and is it a miracle? Is it a fluke? Will they be able to repeat? I don't even know where to begin. I've just blasted all the thoughts, and you can run with that as you wish, Austin.
Okay, so I'll start with one. That was hands down the best losers run in COD history. I don't think we'll see anything like that again. That was absolutely absurd, especially the amount of talent they beat. From Toronto, London, Seattle, Florida, Boston, and then us. Like that is everything in the kitchen sink, right? Like that. The only thing that would have made that better is playing like OpTic somewhere in there. But like in reality, that is arguably the top 8, 4th, 5th, 6th, 3rd, and probably 1 or 2 best teams in the league going into that. And so that is just an amazing run. Honestly, just absurd. Congrats to all those guys. Really what transformed them is Spart was just a very aggressive AR, which is something they didn't have that kept up with the pace of Asum and Hook. It just transformed them. It made them a lot better. The pacing was just crazy. Honestly, I cannot believe New York got rid of Mac and Asum last year. Like, can you believe that line? They got rid of Mac and Asum at the end of last year. I cannot believe it.
Yeah, that's mad.
Asum is the best player. Asum is the best player on this team because the impact he brings, the attitude he brings, the practice mentality that he brings. It's just everything. He is the best player. He is the most impactful player on this team. He's amazing. Slasher he found that consistency on LAN that he didn't have in Major 1. Absolutely crazy. And Hook was just, even though he might not have had the most flashy tournament, was very good on the entry side, was very good. He's a very good SMG duo for Asum. Great performance out of all 3 of them. Do I think it's a fluke? No, because honestly, I like the amount of teams they beat. The S&D that they had was just great. Do I think they'll win another? That's going to be another question. I think it's going to be very tough for them. When you look at their map pool right now, they're 6-6 in hardpoint. From Major 2, 6-6 in hardpoint, 10-2 in S&D, and 4-4 in control. But they're 4-1 in hardpoint and on Berlin, which is if you're 6-6, that means you're 2-5 on the other maps. In control, they're 3-1 on Gavutu and 1-3 on Tuscan. So if you get what I mean, like they have veto holes in their game where they can get kind of exposed in that if their S&D dips, because their S&D is just incredible. But if their S&D does dip, they have holes in the other 2 modes, which will be hard. So they're going to have to constantly work at getting better on that front. But at the same time, I still do think this team has a lot of talent. Their pacing is like almost perfect. Unfortunately, I really doubt Gunless is going to come back into this roster. I don't think you can do that after winning a tournament. And I love Pierce. He's my man, but like it's extremely tough. Ideally, I hope he gets on another top team, maybe Minnesota, maybe LA Thieves. He gets a shot somewhere else because this team is just clicking right now. But yeah, I definitely think it kind of reminds me of the Rampart win that LG had. But at the same time, like I do think they can still be good because of the pacing on this team is just perfect. And so you just have to not fall into the trap of being exposed on vetoes, and they can do better. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts on it. What do you think, Len?
They lost their first 2 SNDs and then they went flawless for the rest. But the fact that they went 500, 6-6 in hardpoint, 4-4 in control, and then went 10-2 in search and destroy to win the event. They always say S&D wins championships. And for the last 2 events, even OpTic during their group play run were amazing in S&D. It just comes back every time. It's always S&D. So and I think that's because it's probably the easiest mode for a team to be like cohesive in and maintain like a positive record. So I think I don't really know what to say about this team. This team just came out of nowhere. Spart had a 1.28 in search and destroy. But if we look, LAG had a 0.97 for this event in hardpoint. They had a 1.01 in control, but a 1.2 in SND with 65% first blood rate. They were just lights out in SND, and it was amazing. They went undefeated on Bocage in SND 3-0, Desert Siege 2-0. But you made a good point about their Tuscan control 1-3. And then Gavutu Hardpoint 0-3. So yeah, they do have holes, but that's probably just because they were a brand new team coming into this event.
Yeah. Honestly, you got to
also
think practice. This team's gonna
Yeah.
be crazy good. Like I definitely think they'll be staying in top 4. I honestly don't think this team will dip, just because like the leadership they have with Austin and Asim is just like absurd. Like those guys are gonna be wanting to push. Spart is gonna be hungry. He's not gonna be like, okay, this is my first win, now I can check out. Like he's gonna be fucking hungry as shit.
Great personality as well. Like seems really motivated, driven. Like
honestly,
okay.
like I think this is something that sets them up to be a threat for the rest of the season. Like that's my thing. And that, literally, if you can be anywhere near that consistent S&D, you are gonna be like no one's gonna want to go to map 5 with you. So like it's honestly crazy. Like I still can't believe like how like honestly. If there was one team I was okay losing to, like I don't want to lose to anybody, but like that team was just so hot, and those guys like, man, like after every map, like on their run there, like Asim's clapping, like Slasher's giving him the hype talk. Hook was just had like this cold stare. He was just like, I'm ready for the next round. I'm gonna mess you up. Like it's and Spart was just getting hype as shit. Like I don't know, those guys had passion, man. That was just like the epitome of passion up on the stage. It was crazy, honestly.
Yeah, there was one story that like that's the thing. I was sitting here at like 3, and I was thinking, damn, well, FaZe are probably gonna win anyway, but at least it's a nice story to talk about the LAG run. Like pretty crazy, right? Like I can put, Slasher on the thumbnail. And I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to change around the order of the players. Like I'm gonna have to, Slasher's gonna have to go front and BG's gotta go on the left. The no pressure thing, as Shane says in the chat, like I think that was maybe part of it, but at the same time, when you get to like top 4, top 3 grand finals, like there's pressure there. It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter if you're kind of going in with that no die attitude. What do you think, Austin?
They were going map 5 too. Like half.
Yeah, that pressure was on. Like 5-3 down against Florida. Pressure's on.
Like,
you don't want to lose.
You're in map 5 versus Seattle, Florida, and Boston. That's not no pressure. That's like boys, we're fucking locking this shit in. Like you gotta. That's pressure there. Even though like those might be like earlier rounds, but it's not like these guys had no pressure. Like what they did have is they found a lot of confidence where they were just like, we'll play you on any map in S&D and we're gonna win. And they found that momentum. They got really hot, and like obviously they were like literally they had a ton of teamwork. They were setting up breaks like flawlessly. They were waiting for each other. You can tell the comms were on point just because they were literally waiting at doors instead of breaking them in and like going in together, making plays together. And that makes the game hard for any team that you're playing against. You can't play individualistic in this game, or else you're going to start getting exposed. And they found the perfect pacing to use that teamwork to become a great team, and like that you don't lose. So like I still do think they're going to be a very good team for the rest of the season.
Austin, did you see what you guys tweeted out after map 4?
Oh, bro, don't even. I couldn't. Don't ask me. I didn't tweet it.
Bring back Nick Scott, man. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Let's just be honest for a second. Your guys' socials are very mid.
What are these graphics, man?
In that role, man. We
really do.
All I can say is we're going through a little transitional period. But obviously Nick Dallas and Jarrell aren't working, and Nick Scott aren't working for FaZe anymore. They were a big part of the content team, so it's a little bit of a transition. We got a couple new hires, so hopefully we'll tighten up. We'll definitely, hopefully.
That was funny though. That was an old time.
Yeah, that was not the most perfect time. They thought it was a best of 5, but the finals obviously they thought it was a best of 5. Tweet got sent out. I'll just say mistakes happen. Yeah, we
go again. We still lost, so you were technically correct.
It happens.
It was a defeat. Yes,
it was a defeat. So congratulations, it's preempted it.
Yes.
The other thing really here is just the Gunless question I wanted to dive into a little bit more, just because I think this really spices things up over the next few weeks, because I think we've made it quite clear that some of these teams need to make changes, but I think we've also thought that maybe some of the teams don't want to, which I think is a mistake. But with Gunless being available, potentially, right? Like, I don't know if LAG want to keep him on the sub bench anyway, but at the end of the day, if the team's happy with Spart, as they probably will be, and Gunless is back to full health over the next coming weeks, you know, there's got to be teams out there that are thinking, well, if Gunless is available and if LAG make that clear, and I'm sure they want I'm sure the players want the best for Gunless, right? And if they feel like there's no spot in the starting team right now, and Gunless doesn't just want to sit there on the bench at full health, then I'm sure they, as a kind of organization, want to do the best that they can for Gunless as well. And I'm sure there's going to be teams out there, because we've talked about the fact that some of these flex roles may be somewhat questionable, or you know, an LA Thieves move or a Minnesota move or something could be on the cards potentially. So I don't know what other org really makes sense, but you know, maybe it's like what Enable said about that Thieves team. He was like, he feels like the vibes are so chalked they need a two-man change. I don't know if Kenny to a main, Gunless as the flex, Envoy plus another SMG is the play. But I don't know. It might happen at some point. But we just have to see, because there's no statement from LAG yet as to what the plan is. They don't have to. There's no hurry. But
Yeah, there must be. I don't know if there's a cutoff for roster lock. Like I think last year was it stage?
like
It was
a
the
couple
final
weeks before
stage.
It was like before stage 5 major
Five,
last year,
I
I
think,
think.
because that's when Afro came in, right? That's
Yeah, was it
I think
before
it
the
was
major or was it before the stage?
before the stage. I think
Might
because
have been, yeah.
he played in the qualifying matches. So I just don't know if it's before stage 4. So I
If it
don't
is,
know.
they gotta hurry up. Like, you know, we
Yeah, I
got.
don't know if it's before the qualifier matches or before the major. I definitely don't think. I love Pierce, and obviously he was out of this lineup due to health reasons. I hope he's doing better. The team was on and up before that happened. They were actually playing a lot better. Their S&D got a lot better. Like obviously, I think they were just putting in a lot of extra time and pockets. They were putting a lot of extra time into the team. They were getting a lot better, but I don't think he'll come in just for the sheer fact that Spart was a different pace than Gunless, a faster pace, which unlocked Slasher to do whatever he wants on the map, right? And Spart was being more aggressive. Slasher was picking up the power positions. He's able to kind of set the tone from the back, really command the troops wherever he wants them, and that unlocked him to be like vintage. That was like the best I've seen him in a minute, and like he was killing it. He was feeling it, and Spart was doing his role perfectly. Asem and Hook were just doing like perfect. It was just teamwork's on fucking perfect. That looked like a team that was together for 6 months, not 6 days. And so that's why I think unfortunate. So like fit wise, it's gonna be a little bit tough. You know, you don't usually see a player go to the bench with that kind of form and that kind of quality. Like he's on good form and he's a great player. So that's where it kind of like opens doors that aren't open necessarily. Like there could be like a team that's in the middle of the pack that is still doing good, but it's like, can we improve? I think we can, and then makes that move. That's where I don't think like London and Toronto will be in that conversation for obvious reasons, but like they prefer a full European teams, and obviously I think London's in a good spot. I don't think you'll see us in Texas, obviously, but like pretty much every other team, I would not be shocked to see them in the conversation for Gunless, just because I think a player of his quality, and obviously he was in pretty good form going into this major. I think there will be a lot of tough conversations GMs and managements will have, like, how much better do we get with this player? Do we make that play call to get him? And then that's kind of where you're going to see that happen. So I would
Yeah.
not be shocked with almost any other move.
It's really unfortunate that he was playing really well in the qualifiers as well. Hitting it. He had like a 1.05, 1.06 for the quals. And then, yeah, just got extremely unlucky. Do we know what he was sick from, if that's like a topic?
Yeah, he's talked about it. There's kind of like a few issues. I believe it's like some sort of gastrointestinal thing. Like he was talking about like stomach ulcers, and I think the medication he had for some of the issues he had was like the meds were taking a toll on him more than the actual kind of like ailment itself. So I think he's managed to get off those and he's doing fine. But I think in order to fix the issue he has, he might need surgery or something. I think that's probably the way to fix it. But I think he feels okay, which is good.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
It was like a duodenitis, I think, something duodenitis. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think of him on Boston?
Gunless for TG, you saying?
It's either Tej or Neuro. You kind of figure out the roles with SMG, or you do it 2 for 2. But how do you picture him with Zinni as an AR duo. Like, do you think that if they look to make changes?
It could be
I
nice, but at the same time, I'm looking at the fact that Slasher just got better when he was with Spart, and I'm looking at Zinni and saying, if anything, Zinni's slower than Slasher.
Yeah,
So
that's just the highest seed I think that would make it that would even look at him. But like, it's tough to see a roster where it's just like he fits in perfectly, you know, like Minnesota. But like, who's gonna be his AR duo there? Obviously, you probably don't want to go to Paris, but he could go to Paris, I guess.
you don't want to go, but yeah.
LA Thieves, like, do they make a change between Kenny and Octane? Do they want to switch up that dynamic there? But other than that, like, you know, Florida has too many ARs right now, and all their ARs are doing pretty good. Like Def Patty and Skies have been good, so it's very like I would not be shocked to see him not get moved for a minute because teams are going to kind of still be identifying what their weaknesses are. So it
yeah,
might be a little bit difficult that way.
his career has been so strange. He played amazing in the first year, which was IW. They won an event. They came second the next event, and then the first trade in COD history happened between FaZe and a United. Clayster for Gunless. They swapped, and then Gunless found himself on FaZe. They choked champs, and then he went to Echo Fox. Didn't play that good. Went to Rise in World War II. He won 2 events on that team. Played amazing. Looked like the best player in the game. And then we went to Black Ops 4. Very strange year with LG. Very up and down. They won Fort Worth with the meta change and
He was still nasty on that team.
and he was great. He was great. He played really good. His stats for the whole year were amazing. It was just a really turbulent year. And then he went to Huntsman, got benched off Huntsman after winning that event. Don't really remember why he got benched, but he got benched nonetheless.
Internal
Uh,
drama, you know the vibes.
yeah, exactly.
the
So it
envoy.
seems like there's like an ongoing internal drama thing happening. And then he went to Seattle. They had a terrible year, but stats wise, him and Octane played great. And then he comes into this year, gets on a team. They're on the up, gets sick, and then his team wins without him. So him and Octane have had a run in the CDL era, and it's been pretty unfortunate because talent-wise, those two were two of the best players. I mean, in CWL history, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
Well,
why I
well,
hope he
well.
lands his way on a good team soon. It's gonna be tough, but I really do. I hope he lands on his feet on like a good team that's in a position to make COD champs, not outside looking in. You know.
hmm
Agreed. Before we do power rankings, because we're going to give a go at power rankings, that's not going to be easy. We're going to give it a go. Let's talk quickly about the Pro-Am, because regardless of what the format is, let's talk about it. Let's just talk about who qualified and who didn't qualify, because that's big. The 12 pro teams will be there in attendance. A month from today, I believe it starts. 4 teams made it. 2 major teams failed to make it, I guess, amongst some other names. But the Minnesota ROKKR Academy, Spanish guys, they didn't make it through. I think they came like top 12 or something. Really interesting because I guess that maybe that was Minnesota's plan for them to qualify, but it just shows how tough these type of brackets are. You know, these open brackets are brutal. And the other one, of course, being Texas Nation, the online demons, the greatest challengers team of all time, arguably winning like 7 in a row. They come in here and get top 6. They lost to, I think, one of the Ultra teams, and then they lost to Silly and Co. Silly, Fire, was it Gunsy and Ramby Bambi? Like a pickup team that was put together 30 minutes before roster lock. Respect on 540's name, baby. Comes through and takes down Texas Nation to qualify.
You know what caused that roster to form?
The
So
Spart thing, I guess, right?
yeah, Spart was on 18 and cracked with Classic, Exceed, and Assault. So Spart gets called up. So then 18 and cracked go, okay, Welly from Bear Claw, you come join us. And then Bear Claw is like, well, shit, now we need an AR. Glowfrosty, you come join us. And then this team was like, shit, we need a pickup, and picked up Silly to fill his spot. And
that's so baller, man. You gotta respect it.
Yep.
I mean, fair play. I mean, okay, so the other teams that qualify, both Ultra Academies qualify. Like, got to put some respect on a European player's name here as well, because Silly, Fire and Co, no European players there, but the North American Ultra Academy has Scrappy Mohawk, Vickle from Spain, and Hixie, of course, from the UK. The European Ultra Academy is the B-Sport Josh coached team of Steve-O, Vortex, and those guys, Harry and Co. Wee Man. Actually, is Weeman on the Electrify team? I'm probably mixing up the players here, to be honest.
You're right.
And then we've got the Electrify team, which is like the other kind of top UK squad, M7 Electrify, whatever they were called, that made it through as well. So, credit where it's due. Like 10 out of the 16 players from Europe. That's awesome. Both Ultra Academies is so cool because I think they played each other actually at some point as well. I think North America won that one and they won the entire thing. But, we might get Ultra versus on one of the Ultra Academies at the Pro-Am, which would be incredible. But yeah, surprising bracket. Really cool to see these players make it. The passion was on display. I think it's great to have LAN, challenges, championships again. I think Doug came like top 32 or something. I don't know. But he didn't have the greatest time. But still, and I think the Ultra guys saw this as an organization and were like, damn, we could do this again. They Adam Adamu said they're going to put one on at their own event, which hopefully becomes a more regular thing. Yeah, Beans, that's it. Yeah, these are the teams. Cheers, lads. Yeah, Furious, Harry, Vortex, Beans, that's right, yeah. And then Weeman and, yeah, Maple, of course, Denza on the other team. So, yeah, honestly, beautiful work. Thoughts, guys?
I was kind of shocked. You can go first, actually.
Oh, yeah, the fact that 10 out of 16 European players was insane. I was so sad to see none of the Australian teams even break top 16.
It's tough, yeah.
Really wanted them, especially Renegades with Fighter, Luca, Shocks, and Jarzen, because 3 out of those 4 won 2 amateur events in 2019. In Black Ops 4, they were the best amateur team. And then coming in this time, just not quite enough. Mind Freak the same. And then not Bear Claw, what am I talking about? Point Blank came top 48 with immense Limax, Restalling, and Cronus. So I was looking at the ANZ teams this whole time because for me, that's my heart. It's where I come from. It's where I started watching COD. So yeah, it's just tough, mate. Our scene is chalked, apart from Pred.
Yeah, that's tough, It was good to see names like Nimble back and these guys because I remember Nimble just frying the hell out of people back in Black Ops 3 Pro League, and it was cool to see that name still around. But yeah, tough for the regions. Hopefully there'll be more of these, right, ongoing, which is spicy. What do you think, Austin?
I was pretty shocked with who qualified. I thought for sure Texas Nation. I thought the Spaniards, the ROKKR Academy, would have a good shot at making it. I did think Denza's team was a shoe-in. I think his team's amazing. I thought them and Texas Nation were going to be like the 2 shoe-ins that make it, and then like anyone else, it would be kind of surprising. So to see who did qualify, I thought it was very interesting because some of these teams have not been so hot in the elites, then came out and did pretty well here. So yeah, I think the Pro-Am is going to be very, very like telling to see because in my personal opinion, when an amateur comes into the scene, into like a fully fledged like pro roster, it's easier to get acclimated they bring the best out of you. Because in all honesty, any pro player or any like high tier amateur player could come in and randomly drop like 45 kills in a map. Like everyone's gun skill is pretty much at the same level. There's like obviously some exceptions to the rule, but what puts you over the top is your teamwork and communication, which is very hard to develop on the amateur side when like a lot of team changes. There's not a lot of like LAN tournaments, so it's very hard to develop that. So I want to see how a full-fledged amateur team goes against a professional team, because I know like amateurs can come into a roster, and that to me is very different than a full amateur team. So I do want to see, because a lot of people forget back in the day, CWL, like the CWL era.
Bodied.
Amateur teams usually 9 times out of 10 got bodied. I want to see if that's not the case. Obviously, it's really hard right now, but there are a lot of veterans, a lot of like LAN veterans on these rosters. I do think there's a lot of guys that can make a wave. I do think like Denzo's team, I'm very interested to see what group they get into, because I think they're the best amateur team out of this bunch. So I am excited to see how these guys do. I think it's going to be I think the Pro-Am, if the format was literally the CWL format from Black Ops 4, this would be probably the most exciting tournament of the entire season. But we'll have to see format wise. CDL, please do a bracket or pool play to double in bracket with the 3rd place team from each group going straight to losers bracket. Please, for the love of God, do that, and this will be probably the best tournament of the year. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree.
Getting right, Glenn.
This event. Yeah, I wish it was like old champs where it was 32 teams, and they found a way to like mix what it would be 20 AM teams at that point. That's actually probably a bit silly, but I think 16 is good. I would like to see more though. Eventually, I've been calling for like a proper
Yeah, bro.
24 team bracket for the
For a
longest
minute, you've
time.
been on this.
Yeah,
Finally
I mean,
getting
since
it.
the CDL started, man, and then finally, I remember
Manifesting that shit.
everyone was telling me every time, like, "Nah, there's no way they mix franchise and AM teams." I'm like, "No, trust me, it's the way," and it still is the way. I just think an end of year tournament, and I think Crone tweeted out again today, like a COD World Cup is still needed. So
Mhm.
like more
Please.
AM/pro tournaments, and then a World Cup. I mean, it's the roadmap.
I don't even care if these are like for 50K. Just set up a double or a pool play where the fourth place team gets eliminated. Top two reach upper bracket, third place lower bracket. Play out a double in bracket. I don't care if it takes a week. Like literally do a whole week, and it will be the most watched COD tournament we will have the entire season. Just
Yeah.
because people love watching amateur teams, they want to see the unexpected. And that's when the most COD is played over 1 week, and that's what the veteran players have been calling for about fucking 3 years now. And I literally think that will be the best tournament like we will have all year. Like that would be great. I don't even care what the prize pool is. It would just be great.
Yep. 100%. One day.
100%, absolutely agreed. The time has come, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to try and do a power rankings to finish out the video. This is not going to be easy, to be perfectly honest. I think it's unclear. Oh, I see it on the screen. This is beautiful. Good stuff, Omar. So here we go. We're going to try and figure out where the team should go. Do we begin at the top? Because to me, FaZe are still the most consistent team. What I said in my video earlier today was that if there was an event tomorrow, which is the most likely team to win, it's got to be FaZe, in my opinion. That's the way at least I'm thinking power rankings. You guys might disagree, but from my perspective, I can't see it being any other team than FaZe. LAG did win, but they came top 12 first major. I think that doesn't automatically make them number one. I think that OpTic came top 6, looks somewhat worse. To me, it's still OpTic. To me, it's still FaZe, then OpTic, then probably LAG. But the question is, do we even put any teams in the S tier? Because Austin made the point before the episode that he doesn't actually think any teams are worthy of S tier right now. So, you know,
That's
so
yeah.
I'm a firm believer that there is no S tier teams right now. When you look at somebody and say like this team will dominate and win the tournament, like obviously a lot of people will say either us or OpTic, but like in reality, I'm harder on my team because I know what we can be and what we currently are. Like obviously, you lose 2 finals in a row. Like obviously, you're making the finals. Like I think we're as close as you can be to an S tier, but we still have a lot of shit to improve on. And I think to be S tier, you have to be elite at all 3 game modes and be like unfuckwittable during like you know what I mean. Like I thought last year we were an S tier team. No one wanted to play us.
no
Like
doubt.
this year, like personally, I think there's an A, B, like everything down below. I think like there's 3 A teams right now, and then like a bunch of midfield teams. Honestly, so that's where like my 2 cents are.
I actually
Should
like
we,
that.
should we put them in then? Do we have
I'm
the
down to go. I think we ignore S. I don't even think we make an A plus. I think we just go for A because it looks better on the screenshot. Here we go, baby. Stick Paris up there. Let's go. You can put Paris already. Okay, Paris are up there. Good. We've got that solidified. I think FaZe A just behind Paris.
yes?
I would put OpTic behind FaZe still. I think that if I'm doing this whole who's most likely to win an event tomorrow thing, which I think is what power rankings should realistically be,
Yeah,
I think that OpTic should still be behind FaZe. I think that they showed this event they don't quite have that consistency factor, but I think on a pure potential standpoint basis and where they have been, I think that OpTic still deserve number 2. I don't think that Los Angeles Guerrillas quite deserve to overtake them yet on just one incredible lower bracket run, because they really haven't showed anything else until this point. But I do think I would still put them third. What are your thoughts?
Yep.
yeah, I fully agree. I don't want to like overreact with like the OpTic losing this past week. OpTic's still an amazing team. They were literally number 1 in S&D going into this tournament. They were like number 3 in hardpoint and number like 1 in control. So you don't just fall off just because you did one bad event, but they're definitely there. And then Gorillas, like I have to put them in A as well because
I think that's
they,
fair, to be honest.
yeah, they just had an unbelievable run,
Potential to
fucking
win.
elite at
They
S&D, and they already have enough teamwork that teams that have been playing for 6 months should have. So that's definitely like the trio I would put at the top right now.
Yep.
Okay, the B. I think there might be 3 teams here. There might just be 2. I think maybe I probably have to put Boston above London. It pains me to do it, and I'm actually not sure I want to. But I think on placings, I might have to. I'm not sure I want to give in to that one. But I think I don't think London can really be 4th. Maybe they can. I don't know. It's Boston or London 4th, 5th, and then it's probably Seattle.
Yep.
But I don't know if they belong in B. They probably do.
I think so.
I
They
would give them
probably
B.
do. I think they
I think
probably
it
deserve
goes-
B.
Austin at the top of B, and then London, and then Seattle. And that's it.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm at right now too. I think Boston, London, and then Seattle.
I'll
Right.
give you guys that. I can't really fight that.
But I
Florida
still
as well.
think literally Boston and London are like 2 peas in a
Florida's
pod.
interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what are we doing with? I think the top 5 is clear. I think the question is here about like Florida, because it's funny how I immediately went to Seattle, even though Florida plays better. I don't know. Am I underrating Florida still? Like, I feel like them going from kind of C to C after coming top 4 feels unfair, but I
mean,
also think it's fair.
I wouldn't hate them being in B behind Seattle. I still think Seattle. I think Seattle's the scarier team right now.
I think they're the better team. They're much more likely to win an event, I think.
Yeah, if I had to pick who would have if the teams above them all got knocked out, who would win? I would still have Seattle. I think they really got the short end of the stick obviously with the sickness they had. But I think clear cut Florida is the next team right behind them. I just don't know whether to put them in B right behind them or C, like obviously a little bit behind them. That's my thing. I don't want to also disrespect them because they did just get a top 4 finish, you know?
Yeah, I think it's tough actually. But if I look at B, I think that and then again, I mean, if I look at, usually when I look at a tier, I try and think, okay, from top to bottom of the tier, do they compete across the tier? And I'm looking at the fact that Boston, game 5 with Florida.
They did beat them in the qualifiers though too. Boston beat them.
Boston, yeah. Florida beat London. Like it's a weird one. Let's leave them in B for now. I think we probably have to give them a slight benefit of the doubt. Do you think?
I think that's safe to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a lot of teams in one of these tiers, and I think putting them at a whole tier behind Seattle when they place better and better than London.
Or we could do this. We could put Seattle and Florida in C.
Well, it's got a network error. What's good?
No. Let's keep them in B.
I'm back up. Let's go.
Yeah, let's keep
it
them
there
in B
for now. Okay, so we've got, I guess, 5 more teams to place if we include Paris.
Oh, we are.
So, what comes next? I mean, it's actually kind of, I want to say New York, I think.
Yeah. All right. Is that where you're gonna go with this, London or Lion? I think New York as well, right?
I think so.
I think they're more promising. Like, yes, they lost to Thieves, but I still think New York have more potential. Like,
Yeah,
I
and they're
don't know,
starting
Thieves
from-
just look lost and woeful at times.
They looked really good during the quals, so I think so. And then probably Toronto right behind them.
Yeah. I'm.
So it's actually tough. This is tough at this point.
Yeah.
I think all these teams are C, though.
Yeah. No,
Any of
it's
these
literally
teams
those
C?
3 in C.
I don't think they are.
It's just weird because I almost have more faith in LA than Toronto, even though LA just went 0-5. It's so weird the lack of faith I have in Toronto. It's just like I have no faith when you literally are making your opponent play to 1 because they just lose every hard point. You're literally just saying, if your opponent beats me in 2, 3, or 5, I lose the series, and it's like, dang.
Yeah, I think Ultra have to be lower than Thieves, to be honest. Like, it's tough to say, but I think it's true. And then it's like, where does Minnesota go? Like, Ultra might be 11th, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, right now, yeah, probably, actually.
I hate that because they have so much talent that shouldn't ever be the case. That should just never be the case on this team. Like they have a great coaching staff. They have a great AR duo, and they have a great SMG duo. But there's just no performance. It's so weird, right? So weird.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that Felipe has a decent point in the chat, right? The 2021 Ultra is too vivid in our heads, and I think that maybe the way the reverse sweep did their power rankings for Thieves before the major was indicative of that for Thieves in the way that, like, I think to some degree they looked at the players and were like, damn, there's no way this team can be C or D. I think they put them B tier or something. I still don't think that's true. I think that it should be Thieves after New York. Then I think it's probably Minnesota, to be honest, because at least Minnesota can win a game 4.
I don't hate
Ultra
that.
can't win a game 1 or a game 4.
I
I
think
would say Thieves next day, Mar. Then I would say I would do it in this order. You've got it right now. That might be hot take though.
I think they're all C. I think Paris is the only D tier team. I think all these teams are close-ish to the same level. It's really weird. Like I feel like the C and B could literally be split up by like C plus, you know? Like it's like so weird how like congested just those two areas are.
You could
But
give Florida like a C plus.
it's like weird because I don't want to put anyone in D because D is a failing grade here. Like that's where I would put Paris right now. But I
Mhm.
don't want to like it's very weird how like congested B and C is, and there's literally no way to distinguish between them right now because it's like so like those teams are beating each other, and it's so weird. Like I honestly can't wait for Major 3 because that's where I think you're going to see some of those teams like take off and some kind of regress back to where they truly should be. You know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I agree. Are we going to lock them in, Omar?
Well, where do we have
Yeah, what do we
Minnesota
do?
above Toronto? What do you have London or Lion for
Yeah,
that?
what do you think about
Calling
that
you
line?
London.
I don't actually
London
know.
twice.
I know.
Like, what
I
London?
don't know why, bro. I'm
Not even
struggling
serious,
over
man.
here.
Stan and Ravens.
So I don't have the stream up, so I can't actually see where we're at. So give me a fleeting
I
look.
can screenshot it for you if you want.
Go on then.
Yeah, I'll screenshot it real quick. I'll chuck it in the chat. Here you go. It's
My
looking like
guy.
that right now.
Okay. I think that's 100% fair. Like
Do you
that's
have
perfect.
do you have Toronto behind Minnesota or before Minnesota?
I think their potential as a team is
If you
probably higher.
if
But
you had to
saying
pick
that, go.
if you had to pick one to place higher next tournament, who would it be? If we had a tournament tomorrow.
Mm,
I still
It
kind of
really
want to say
depends on the
Ultra on that
bracket,
question,
no?
to be
I think
honest.
it depends on the bracket. I think if they both have the same bracket, I'd
First round
probably
matchup, they play each other.
they play each other. Shit. I can see Toronto. Oh, no,
Ultra did beat them,
I'd say
actually.
ROKKR would win that series, but they're both not like convincing me a reason why they should win
I still
that
think
series.
Ultra win the head-to-head, but I don't know if that, because at the same time, like, I think Minnesota have had a very tough run lately. Like they've played tough teams.
Yeah,
Um,
but
but
ROKKR are somehow even like Ultra are somehow even worse than ROKKR at hardpoint, and they're
Ultra
not
just lost to
as
Paris
good.
too. They
Yeah.
like just lost to Paris.
yeah, that's pretty embarrassing, huh?
And they just lost to New
At
York.
least Minnesota lost to OpTic. Okay, screw it. We're going with the initial thoughts. We've got
Right
C
there.
tier. I think that's how it is.
Yeah,
Minnesota
I think
above
that's fair.
Ultra. Ultra T11. The only question mark is whether we somehow put Mutineers in their own tier, but I think that is deserved. I think that B is deserved. And I think this nicely sums up, actually, where the league is, you know?
So congested, man.
Like, but I think this is accurate, frankly, because Paris are chalked, kind of. I think this is now more accurate. But, like, Paris aren't going to be winning anything anytime soon. But from the A, B, C tier, like, if an A tier team is not on their game, they can lose to anyone below them. And it's the same in that kind of ballpark. And
Yeah.
I think having no S tier team is justified because there's no clear favorite at this point.
And
Yeah,
this is
honestly.
just
There's no
going
team
off,
that's playing like an S tier team, to be honest.
yeah, it's going off LAG though, just the major run. Like we're not even really thinking about their previous roster. Well, previous roster being with Gunless.
Yeah.
But like if they slip up at all in SND, they go like 500 in SND, then they're straight back into B and C.
Yeah, I feel like they would if no, I don't even want to say that because I think with more practice they'll get better at their map
I
pool and
agree
hardpoint
with
and control. But if their S&D does regress a little bit, I feel like the lowest with the potential I just saw this week, the lowest I probably could see them is between like Florida and Seattle, you know. I still think they're going to be a good team no matter what. Just because I think with ASUM and Austin and Hook, you're gonna have good fundamentals, or you're gonna have a good, at least some synergy in hardpoint and control, so you'll be able to at least stay 500 there. And I think with Spart, he's bringing this rejuvenated energy for S&D. I think you'll stay kind of towards the top of B and A.
Do you think though now, because of the exposure they've had of winning an event, the amount of VOD that's going to be watched on them might also drop them down? Because they came into this major a completely unknown quantity, and teams didn't really know how to counter them. So I feel like with this win, it could also be a detriment to them if they're getting, spied on a lot. But
Yeah, I mean that goes with the territory. Like I feel like obviously no team's gonna be like, this is no disrespect, but no team's gonna be watching like the C tier VOD unless they're just elite at one of the maps. The second you start doing really well, teams are gonna be wanting to see how you got to that, how you became that good so quickly, and then obviously you're a threat now to win tournaments. You're gonna get anti-stratted by all the top teams. So that will be a detriment for like S&D. S&D is really easy to anti-strat, but also some of your more common routes and respawns will start getting anti-stratted. I don't know. It's all about adaptivity. I don't even know how to say that right, but how good you adapt in the moment, which I do have more promise in this roster to adapt than I do in others. So like I do think they'll be okay. But what makes this roster great right now is S&D, and they'll have to continue putting in work to stay at that level, which is it's part of the game. It's a give and take.
100%. Just what they did this week was the most unlikely thing that's ever happened in COD. So if they think that they can just run it back, it's not going to happen.
Let's run it back, baby. Paris winning next event for sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the day. Thanks so much for helping us through all that type of stuff. Absolutely beautiful work. Everyone in the chat right now, we had a fantastic time. Hope you all enjoyed yourselves. After the fact on YouTube as well, and all the other podcast platforms. The podcast has been growing at absurd rates as of late. Last week we had our all-time highest Twitch numbers. You guys are absolutely killing it. So appreciate all the support. We really appreciate all the support as well. Keeps us going every single week. And it's a very exciting time to be a COD fan, especially after this past weekend. So we have a bit of time off. We're not going to take time off though, because I'm sure there's plenty to happen that we'll talk about in podcast over the coming weeks. Might be a little bit shorter than this one, but it will still be good regardless. And we're going to do a raid. So thanks for watching as always. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.